Suhai froze for a moment. He had steeled himself for the possibility of getting no mental power supplies tonight and forcing through the fusion process regardless. He never expected this young girl, Zhou Xiaoming, whose voice on the team channel was as faint as a mosquito's buzz, to seek him out on her own initiative. He replied, "What is it?" Zhou Xiaoming's message popped up instantly. Deep Sea Royal Jelly, rare grade. I made it myself. I possess a talent for crafting supportive consumables. Its effect is an instant restoration of 40 mental power and 40 stamina. I have 3 jars. 1 is enough for me, and I'll give the remaining 2 to the captain. Before Suhai could type a response, a trade request appeared. 2 jars of Deep Sea Royal Jelly, priced at 0 gold coins. The note read, "Captain, stay strong." Suhai stared at the 0 gold coins, marked for several seconds before accepting the trade. 2 palm-sized transparent jars materialized in his storage space. They held golden, translucent viscous liquid that shimmered with a gentle glow beneath the lights. Tiny golden particles floated suspended within the fluid as the jars swayed slightly. Deep Sea Royal Jelly Rare. Effect: instantly restores 40 mental power and 40 stamina upon consumption. Note: bees of the deep sea? Not exactly. It is a secretion from a type of mutated jellyfish. It boasts an exceptionally rich, sweet flavor, and its practical effects are far more reliable than fleeting whims. Fleeting whims only drain your mental energy, while this replenishes it. Suhai's mouth twitched. The system notes were as wry as ever. He picked up 1 jar of royal jelly, twisted off the lid, and took a sip. The moment the liquid touched his tongue, an intense sweetness burst forth, not the monotonous sweetness of refined sugar, but a layered, floral sweetness, smooth and warm, as if he had bitten into an entire blooming meadow. Then the medicinal effect kicked in. Recovery was not gradual, it was instantaneous. A mild yet powerful warm current spread from his stomach throughout his body, flowing into every limb before converging toward his head. The hollow, drained emptiness deep within his mind was filled by the warmth, much like parched, cracked riverbeds nourished by a fresh stream of water. His vision sharpened, his thoughts grew clear again, and his reaction speed and focus returned to their peak. The whole process took less than 10 seconds. Suhai took a deep breath, stowed the remaining half jar back into storage, and walked over to the workbench. He hauled 10 XM9 heavy torpedoes from the ammunition rack and lined them up on the surface. He drew a deep breath, placed both hands on either side of the workbench, and muttered the word fuse. Violet light erupted. All 10 torpedoes decomposed and reconstructed simultaneously amid the radiance. He could feel his mental power steadily drained by a persistent force. The strain was not as brutal as when he had fused 100 axes earlier, yet the consumption was plainly noticeable. The violet glow lasted roughly 5 seconds before abruptly fading. A brand new torpedo rested on the workbench. It was a full size larger than the standard model. Its shell had changed from military camouflage to matte dark black, with a ring of dim golden runic patterns etched around the warhead, flickering faintly like slow breathing under the lights. Fine scale-like textures covered the hull, imparting a subtle abrasive texture to the touch. Fusion complete. XM9 heavy torpedo times 10 dark scale piercing torpedo times 1. Dark scale piercing torpedo, 500 increased destructive power. Grants the armor piercing trait, deals bonus penetrating damage against armor, energy shields, and black gas defensive layers. Grants the tracking trait, can execute 3 course corrections after locking onto a target, lowering the target's evasion chance by 90. Suhai held the dark scale piercing torpedo in his hands, sensing its substantial weight and the faint warmth emanating from the golden runes on its hull. 10 ordinary heavy torpedoes forged 1 piercing torpedo. The cost ratio stood at 10-1, yet the difference in combat performance was night and day. Previously, engaging second-order contaminated entities required 8 to 10 missiles striking simultaneously to breach their black gas barriers. A single dark-scale piercing torpedo could accomplish the same feat. He took another mouthful of royal jelly to replenish the mental power he had just expended, then completed the fusion sequence for the first batch of 10 dark-scale piercing torpedoes. 10 dark-scale piercing torpedoes stood neatly on the ammunition rack, the golden runes on their hulls glinting with cold, faint light. It was still not enough. While continuing his fusions, he transmitted new orders to Zhao Tianmei via the submarine communications system. Maintain sustained fire suppression. Deploy more decoys and conserve live ordnance. Hold the first-order monsters back. Do not let them draw near the reef cluster. Wait for me to finish. Zhao Tianmei acknowledged him over the communications channel, her voice taut yet calm. She simultaneously piloted the Orca-class attack submarine and managed its weapons systems, steering the vessel to constantly shift positions along the frontline defense. She laid overlapping fire barriers across the seabed, playing using sonar decoys and depth charges. Beads of sweat dotted her forehead, yet her hands remained steady, the timing of every launch perfectly calibrated. Suhai could hear her occasional ragged breaths and the rapid tapping of her fingers against the weapon panel from the channel. He refocused his attention and kept fusing. The royal jelly aided his mental recovery, but his mental power was not inexhaustible. Though fusing 100 standard torpedoes in batches was far less taxing than fusing 100 axes all at once, creating 10 dark-scale piercing torpedoes had drained nearly 60% of his mental reserves. He leaned against the warehouse wall and closed his eyes to rest for several minutes. Opening the trade inventory, he retrieved all the mental recovery supplies he had collected earlier: mint tea, deep sea coffee, soothing seaweed extracts. He drank them one after another. The mint tea carried a cool, refreshing tang. The coffee was bitter and invigorating. The seaweed extract had a salty, fishy taste, yet all delivered tangible effects. His mental power climbed back close to full capacity. Then he resumed fusing. Second batch of 10. Third batch of 10. Fourth batch. On the ammunition rack, the number of dark-scale piercing torpedoes rose from 10 to 20, 30, 40. Between each burst of violet light, his mental power was repeatedly emptied and replenished, drained and restored once more. By the later batches, throbbing pains returned to his temples, and a dull tension spread across the back of his head. But he did not stop. He had set a target of 100. 100 dark-scale piercing torpedoes, the condensed equivalent of 1,000 standard torpedoes, and the most reliable guarantee to break through tonight's positional battle. When he finished the final batch, the count of dark-scale piercing torpedoes on the ammunition rack reached 104. He loaded all the dark-scale piercing torpedoes into the Orca-class attack submarine's torpedo tubes and missile silos. Heavy torpedo tubes received priority loading, while vertical launch silos held a mixed load of dark-scale piercing torpedoes and conventional missiles. Rows of pale blue indicator lights lit up on the weapons panel, the exclusive identification hue of the dark-scale piercing torpedoes. He leaned against the warehouse wall and exhaled deeply. The exhaustion weighing on his mind was suppressed by the royal jelly's effects, yet not fully erased, much like aching muscles wrapped beneath a bandage. At that moment, the tactical sonar emitted a shrill alarm. It was not the dense, noisy signal of swarming first-order contaminated entities, nor the massive, solitary signature of a second-order contaminated entity. The instant this signal appeared on the sonar screen, red warning glows spread along every edge of the display. It marked a third-order signature. From deep within the breach in the contamination zone, a colossal creature over 15 meters tall slowly emerged. Its form no longer resembled a human being entirely. Its upper torso retained the outline of a human female, with elongated arms and 6 claw-like bone spurs in place of fingers. Starting from the waist, its lower body belonged to an entirely inhuman form. 7 giant tentacles, akin to those of an octopus, extended outward, each stretching over 10 meters long and covered in black chitinous scales. The tip of every tentacle bore a sucker-shaped maw lined with circular serrated fangs. A twisted crown of bone spurs jutted from the back of its skull. Black gas billowed through gaps in the crown, forming a thick, visible black mist barrier surrounding its body. Its face remained intact, the features of a young woman, delicate and even beautiful. Yet the face bore no expression whatsoever. Its eyes were solid crimson, with black fluid continuously seeping from its pupils and diffusing into fine black mist within the seawater. The tactical sonar displayed identification data: contaminated entity third order mutation. Threat level, extreme. Traits: all 7 tentacles can target multiple foes simultaneously. Each tentacle's terminal sucker inflicts mental drain upon contact. Targets seized by the suckers endure continuous mental contamination. The black mist barrier possesses exceptional durability. Direct hits from standard ordnance can only erode barrier thickness and cannot penetrate it. Attack methods include tentacle strangulation, mental shriek, and black mist corrosion. Special warning: third-order contaminated entities wield area of effect mental attacks. At set intervals, it unleashes a mental shriek that covers the entire defensive line. All players within the radius must pass a mental contamination check. Those with insufficient mental attribute risk experiencing hallucinations, mania, and self-harm. On the tactical sonar screen, the enormous red signature slowly rose from the contamination zone breach. Suhai observed the sight without panic, remaining perfectly calm. He thought to himself, perfect timing to test my new armament. Zhao Tianmei glanced over at him. Her lips moved, yet she said nothing. The rest of the squad reacted far less composedly. Over the team channel, Zhao Sanduo's voice trembled noticeably. A third order? The system labels it a third order mutant. He Hai's tone had shifted as well, his usual gruffness tainted with suppressed tension. 15-meter class. 7 tentacles. Mental shriek. The system marks threat level extreme. Zhou Xiaoming practically shrieked over the channel. Captain! Captain! Another huge one. Bigger than all the ones we've faced so far. Zhao Sanduo and He Hai opened fire at once. The Sanduo-class vessel unleashed all its depth charges and torpedoes toward the third-order contaminated entity. He Hai's Manatee-class locked for missiles onto its tentacles. Explosive flames burst against the entity, sending ripples across its black mist barrier, but nothing more. The woman's face slowly turned toward Zhao Sanduo and He Hai's position. Then it opened its mouth. It was not a scream, but something far more horrifying. An invisible shockwave of mental energy spread outward from its jaws like a transparent tsunami, sweeping across the entire defensive line in an instant. Mental shriek activated. The moment the shockwave washed over the submarine hull, all lights in the cockpit flickered and dimmed. Zhao Tianmei let out a brief groan. Her hands slipped from the control levers, and she slumped limply in the co-pilot's seat, her eyes rolling back as her body began convulsing uncontrollably. A scream came from Zhou Xiaoming over the channel, not a cry of fear, but a shriek brought on by mental collapse. Her Lightning-class vessel began circling aimlessly on the outer edge of the right-side reef cluster, its engines malfunctioning, and its rapid-fire cannons spraying blind rounds in every direction. Zhao Sanduo's cries echoed through communications. He clutched his head and rolled around inside his cockpit, repeating a woman's name over and over, a loved one from the surface world, his voice growing hoarser and more desperate by the second. He Hai's groans were quieter, yet far more unsettling. He said nothing, only hammering the instrument panel with his fists, blow after blow, until his knuckles split and bled without pause. For the first time, a faint shift crossed the beautiful woman's face belonging to the third-order contaminated entity. It had heard the roar of artillery fire. Suhai fully activated the Orca-class attack submarine's weapons systems in that instant. Hatches covering the vertical missile silos along its rear deck slid open, safety locks disengaged on the 6 forward heavy torpedo tubes, and 4 secondary lateral torpedo tubes entered rapid-fire mode. Zhao Tianmei was no longer capable of operating the weapon systems, but Suhai required no assistance. His hands blurred across the weapon panel, locking targets, launching ordnance, switching ammunition types, reacquiring targets. Every movement followed a precise, almost ruthless rhythm. First volley. 12 standard heavy torpedoes and 8 conventional missiles formed a mixed barrage. 20 rounds launched in under 10 seconds. Explosive flames erupted against the third-order contaminated entity's black mist barrier, sending violent ripples surging across the shield. Once the blasts faded, however, the barrier remained intact. A subtle smirk tugged at the woman's face. She made no immediate counterattack. She simply stood there, watching Suhai's submarine with cold contempt, as if observing a moth repeatedly slamming into a pane of glass. From her perspective, the human's actions were foolish and pointless. The only remaining submarine capable of launching attacks persisted in futile attempts to strike her with crude metal ordnance. Her third eye, the dark red vertical eye set at the center of the bone spur crown on the back of her head, possessed mental perception far exceeding ordinary sight. She could see the internal structure of every projectile, warhead materials, fuse mechanisms, blast radii. Against a third-order entity, such weapons were essentially meaningless. All beings beneath the third-order threshold were mere ants. The second volley of artillery arrived. The Orca-class attack submarine's launch tubes disgorged another wave of ordnance. This time, 16 torpedoes paired with 8 missiles, a larger barrage than the first. Trajectories varied deliberately, direct forward strikes, arcing flanking assaults, and rounds that ascended before diving vertically downward, attempting to exploit weak points in the barrier from all angles. The third-order contaminated entity scanned the incoming projectiles with her mental perception. Still ordinary armaments. Heavy torpedoes, Sea Spear 3 anti-ship missiles, depth-charge warheads. Identical models to the previous volley, only greater in number. Human thought patterns were predictably simplistic. They believed hurling more metal could change the outcome. Her smirk deepened. Insufficient attack power remained insufficient. Even hundreds of strikes from countless directions, Even a tenfold increase in quantity could never breach the black mist barrier. She did not even bother evading. Let the human exhaust its ammunition, sink into despair, and suffer mental breakdown just like the others. Then she would advance slowly and tear apart this irritating metal shell tentacle by tentacle. Explosive flames engulfed her form once again. The black mist barrier rippled violently. The disturbance matched that of the first volley, stabilizing swiftly once the blast subsided. The woman's smirk never faded. Then the third volley arrived. The third-order contaminated entity habitually swept the new wave of ordnance with her mental perception. Her smirk froze. Something was wrong. The internal structure of these projectiles was entirely different. Their warheads were forged not from standard military alloy, but a dull matte black metal covered in scale-like textures. Golden runic patterns were embedded within the fuses, and her mental perception recoiled upon making contact with those markings. The payload inside the hull was not conventional explosive, but an unfamiliar dark red semi-fluid emanating an energy signature that triggered primal alarm within her. These were no ordinary munitions. She did not recognize them. She had devoured countless humans and mutated creatures within the contamination zone, extracting fragments of memory to learn the rules of this world. Military torpedoes, anti-ship missiles, depth charges, she knew all conventional weapon models and had grown immune to them. These new projectiles fell outside everything she knew. An emotion she had not experienced in ages surfaced from the remnants of her human consciousness: uncertainty. Uncertainty toward the unknown. She could not tell what these munitions would do, how much damage they might inflict, or whether her barrier could hold. She simply did not know, and the unknown stood closest to fear. She tried to dodge, yet it was already too late. Suhai had mixed the dark-scale piercing torpedoes amid the ordinary ordnance. The first two volleys had used only standard rounds, conditioning the third-order entity to assume he possessed nothing but conventional weapons. The opening portion of the third volley also consisted of regular ordnance, with 8 dark-scale piercing torpedoes concealed in the latter half. By the time her mental perception detected the anomaly, the 8 specialized torpedoes were less than 20 meters away from her body. The moment the first dark-scale piercing torpedo collided with the black mist barrier, the golden runes on its warhead blazed to life. There was no immediate explosion. Penetration activated. The piercing property took effect. The dark warhead tore through the dense black mist as easily as cutting thin gauze. A visible hole was punched through the black mist barrier. The torpedo slipped through the opening into the space inside the shield, detonating less than 3 meters from the third-order entity's torso. Boom. The dark red blast did not expand outward at first. It imploded inward. Once compression reached its limit, the energy burst outward with multiplied force. This unique detonation pattern was a product of fusion refinement for dark-scale munitions, implosion followed by external detonation, concentrating all destructive force within the tightest possible radius. Second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth. All 8 dark-scale piercing torpedoes penetrated the black mist barrier and detonated in sequence within the gap between the shield and the entity's torso. Sheets of dark red fire merged, wrapping the third-order contaminated entity entirely. The expression on the woman's face finally shifted. Contempt faded, replaced by unmaskable shock and rage. Her jaw parted, preparing to unleash a second psychic shriek, but a dark-scale piercing torpedo surged into her mouth the instant her lips spread open. The detonation erupted from within. Half of her cheek was blown away, revealing black bone and decaying muscle beneath. The spiked crown atop her skull fractured under the blast wave, and blood-red eyes tore free from their sockets. 7 tentacles lashed wildly in agony. 3 were severed by subsequent explosions, jetting black blood like spilled ink. Yet this Tier 3 corrupted entity possessed far greater vitality than its Tier 2 kin. It strove to reform its energy shield, to counterattack with its remaining tentacles, to locate the submarine that had wounded it and tear it apart. Suhai gave it no chance. He ordered a full salvo of loaded dark-scale piercing torpedoes. 20 dark-scale piercing torpedoes launched simultaneously from every tube, striking from the front, flanks, above, and below, attacking from all viable angles. Runes etched across the warheads traced 20 pale blue light trails through the deep sea, weaving into a closing net of death. The Tier 3 corrupted entity lashed out with its 4 surviving tentacles in a frantic attempt to intercept, but the tracking property of the dark-scale warheads cut evasion odds by 90%. Its flailing limbs only managed to block 2 torpedoes, which detonated inside the tentacles and blew them to shreds. The remaining 18 found their mark. Interlocking crimson explosions bloomed into a blinding orb akin to a miniature sun. The black mist shield collapsed completely under sustained armor-piercing strikes. The 15-meter mutated body was ripped to fragments amid the blasts. Limbs and black blood churned through seawater. The spiked crown shattered entirely, and the final emotions frozen on the beautiful feminine face, shock, fury, refusal, vanished forever as the head was torn apart. Corrupted Entity Tier 3 Mutant ×1 eliminated. Once the shockwaves dispersed, a brief silence fell over the battlefield. It was not ordinary quiet, but a hush where every being held its breath, as if even the seawater itself had ceased flowing. Inside the squad channel, Hihai was the first to break the stillness. He halted, his fist pounding against the instrument panel, blood still trickling from his knuckles, yet his voice regained clarity. Staring at the massive fading red signature on the sonar screen, he spoke 2 words in his trademark gruff tone. "It's dead." Zhao Sanduo clambered up from the cockpit floor, tear streaks staining his cheeks and mucus clinging to his upper lip. He gazed out the viewport at the spreading crimson glow left by the explosion, his lips trembling repeatedly before he roared into the channel with every ounce of strength. The captain took down a Tier 3 all by himself. Zhou Xiaoming's voice came through the channel. She was still crying, though this time from relief. "Wu Captain, Captain, I truly thought I was going to die," she rambled amid her sobs, spamming a string of random emoticons in the channel. The lightning finally stopped spinning aimlessly and regained stable control. Suhai flexed his fingers in the cockpit, his expression unchanging. He turned his head slightly to glance at the co-pilot's seat. Zhao Tianmei had regained consciousness. Though the psychic shriek's effect was brutal, her mental strength was substantial. She had only briefly blacked out and suffered no permanent psychic damage. Rubbing her temples, she sat upright in the co-pilot chair. The first thing she saw was the vanishing Tier 3 signature on the sonar display. Suhai reallocated the remaining dark-scale piercing torpedoes to each launch tube. "How are you feeling? Can you resume operations?" "I can." Zhao Tianmei reclaimed the control yoke. Her fingers still trembled faintly, but her tone steadied. "I'm all right, just a mild headache." Suhai nodded, then opened the squad channel. "All units, report status." Zhao Sanduo cut in first. "Sanduo has 40% ammunition remaining. Minor hull damage, still combat ready." "Captain, you're incredible. I barely saw that full salvo. What model are those black torpedoes? How did one blast straight through a Tier 3 shield?" Hihai's voice followed closely. "Seabull holds 30% ammunition. Hull intact. Minor engine fault, still operational. Can continue fighting." Zhou Xiaoming's tone still carried remnants of sobbing, yet she spoke coherently. Lightning has half its ammo left. The vessel's fine, just scraped against reefs when the psychic attack seized control earlier, leaving a scratch on the hull. It's nothing serious." Suhai spoke calmly. "All submarines, be advised. The battle is not over. Numerous Tier 1 corrupted entities remain along the defense line, and Tier 2 signatures have not been fully cleared. Reform formation, rearm, and prepare for the next wave." No sooner had he finished speaking than new shifts appeared on the tactical sonar. Out on the battlefield, the Tier 1 corrupted entities that had been charging the defense line ferociously exhibited abnormal behavior after the Tier 3 leader's demise. They abandoned their reckless assault and began hovering at the outer perimeter of the front line. Some even halted entirely, staring vacantly toward the fading crimson blast glow above the battlefield with blood-red eyes. They had witnessed their Tier 3 leader's death. Though the corrupted entities' minds were overridden by corruptive power, primitive biological instinct lingered within them. The Tier 3 leader was the strongest among their swarm, the core driving force behind their offensive. When that core was blown into fragments by human firepower, fear, the primal, unshakable terror that corruption could never fully erase, began spreading among the horde. Several vanguard entities started retreating. Dragging their twisted, mutated limbs, they edged backward toward the breach leading to the corrupted zone. At first they moved slowly, testing the defense line's response. When no strikes targeted the retreating creatures, more entities followed suit. "They're scared." Zhao Sanduo's shout echoed through the channel, his voice cracking with excitement. "Captain, they're terrified. They're pulling back." Suhai had observed it clearly. He would not let the corrupted entities retreat unhindered. "All defense line units." His voice cut across the squad channel, cold as steel quenched in seawater. "Full firepower. Pursue." Zhou Xiaoming reacted first. The lightning surged out from behind the right reef cluster, engines roaring, twin propellers churning white eddies as it surged at maximum speed toward the fleeing Tier 1 swarm. Her fear faded. Her voice still shook with leftover tears, edged with gritted resolve. You chased me. You terrified me. Now it's your turn. Rapid-fire cannons unleashed sustained barrages, shells pouring down onto the corrupted entities like rain. Multiple Tier 1 creatures exploded, black blood billowing through the seawater. Zhao Sanduo charged out right behind her. He deployed all remaining depth charges behind the retreating horde, igniting successive walls of flame to cut off their escape. Running? You thought you could get away? Where was that ferocity when you charged forward? He roared while launching torpedoes, each one striking the densest clusters of entities. He said nothing, yet his sea bull moved swiftly. The heavy submarine glided steadily out from the left reef cluster. Hatches on its dorsal missile bays flew open, for missiles trailing white streaks as they homed in on Tier 2 entities attempting to hold formation. He was never one for idle talk, yet every strike he delivered was far more precise and ruthless than Zhao Sanduo and Zhou Xiaoming's. The Orca-class attack submarine opened fire as well. Suhai conserved his dark-scale piercing torpedoes. They were reserved as a trump card against higher-tier threats. Standard ordnance was more than sufficient to handle Tier 1 stragglers and scattered Tier 2 targets. Heavy torpedoes, Sea Spear 3 anti-ship missiles, depth demolition charges poured forth in steady waves. He would not waste excessive standard ammunition on stray Tier 2 targets. Whenever fresh Tier 2 signatures appeared on sonar, he loaded a single dark-scale piercing torpedo, locked on, fired, and eliminated the target in one clean sequence. Zhao Sanduo watched the entire sequence unfold on the channel and exclaimed, "Taking down Tier 2 foes feels just as easy as Tier 1 for the captain. Is there some unbalanced advantage in this realm?" Firepower across the entire 47th Defense Line surged. For combat platforms, output fire at peak efficiency. The corrupted entity's retreat devolved into rout, then a one-sided slaughter. Time passed, and at last, no new corrupted entity signatures emerged from the breach on the tactical sonar. Remaining hostiles were cornered along the breach edge. They abandoned counterattack entirely, scrambling to squeeze back through the opening into the dark abyss shrouded by corruption. Shortly afterward, the system countdown hit 0. Abyss defense mission. Remaining time, midnight. Mission concluded. As the countdown reached its end, an uncanny scene unfolded at the corrupted zone breach. The corrupted entities struggling to slip inside suddenly froze simultaneously, as if seized by an invisible giant hand. Then an irresistible force dragged them violently backward into the breach. It was no organized withdrawal or flight, but forcible suction governed by laws beyond physical reality. Every entity's body contorted violently as they were pulled inward, black mist sloughing off their forms to reveal rotting human remains beneath. The crimson light barrier along the breach reignited like a closing gate, sealing off the corrupted zone from safe waters once more. The final corrupted entity vanished within the barrier as it clamped shut completely. Silence descended over the battlefield. The abyssal plain bore only blast craters, discarded torpedo wreckage, charred seabed sand, and scattered glowing loot orbs drifting through the seawater. Zhao Sanduo was the first to speak in the squad channel, brimming with unrestrained exhilaration. "We won. We actually won." Zhou Xiaoming followed, laughing and crying all at once. "I'm alive. I survived. I fought through this battle, and I'm still alive." He uttered no words, yet a long, heavy exhale resounded over the channel. That breath carried countless emotions, fatigue, relief, and a quiet sense of belonging he would never put into speech. Just then, a deep, imposing system announcement boomed inside every player's mind. It was not the usual crisp chime, but a soul-shaking low rumble reserved exclusively for pivotal events, the same tone used for the initial defense mission notice. Suhai recognized the sound. System Announcement Region EC 7724. Abyss Defense Mission completed. Regional security restored. We honor all players for your bravery. Your sacrifices and resistance have preserved hope for further advancement within this region. Contribution value ranking calculation commencing. All players remain stationary during tabulation. Rewards will be distributed by ranking once calculations finish. Once the announcement faded, the regional channel erupted into chatter. "It's over. Truly over. I made it out alive. The commander of our defense line is a powerhouse. He endured 40% of all incoming damage. We would have perished without him. We have a top-tier fighter on our line, too. He single-handedly eliminated 3 Tier 2 entities, and we worked alongside reinforcements to wear down our Tier 3 threat. You encountered Tier 3 foes? Our defense line only faced 2 Tier 2s, and we nearly suffered total annihilation clearing them. A Tier 3 emerged at our defense line as well. It almost wiped us out entirely, until the system summoned elite players from adjacent defense lines to assist. We barely managed to kill it. Minutes later, the official rankings were released. Suhai opened the system announcement panel. A massive, translucent light screen unfolded before his eyes. Golden characters blazed across the top. Region EC 7724, Abyss Defense Mission, Contribution Value Rankings. Beneath the header, the list rolled downward starting from first place. Rank 1, Thunder Zhao Tianlei. Affiliation, Thunder Alliance, Alliance Leader. Vessel, Thunder Class Vessel Tier 3. Contribution Value, 584,721. Elimination Highlights. Tier 3 Corrupted Entity times 1. Tier 2 Corrupted Entity times 7. Tier 1 Corrupted Entity times 312. Evaluation, Unstoppable Thunder. He stood at the forefront, bearing the core pressure of the entire defense line alone. The Tier 3 Corrupted Entity lasted barely the span of a meal against him. Suhai raised an eyebrow slightly. First place belonged to Zhao Tianlei, leader of the Thunder Alliance. The Thunder Alliance was the faction that posted regional notices declaring, "The weak need not apply. Thunder only accepts the strong." His vessel was Tier 3, and his combat record also included one Tier 3 Corrupted Entity kill. Rank 2, Free Lin Shuang. Affiliation, Free Alliance, Alliance Leader. Vessel, Queen of Frost Tier 3. Contribution Value, 561,203. Elimination Highlights. Tier 3 Corrupted Entity times 1. Tier 2 Corrupted Entity times 5. Tier 1 Corrupted Entity times 287. Evaluation, Lone Wolf of the ICCs. Every torpedo strikes precisely at Corrupted Entity weak points. The Tier 3 foe was frozen solid by her assaults before shattering into powder. Second place was Lin Shuang, leader of the Free Alliance, the faction whose motto ran, "We seek no charity from others, nor give charity to anyone." Her vessel was also Tier 3, and she had independently eliminated a Tier 3 Corrupted Entity as well. Rank 3, Suhai. Affiliation, None. Vessel, Orca Class Attack Submarine Tier 2. Contribution Value, 491,830. Elimination Highlights. Tier 3 Corrupted Entity times 1. Tier 2 Corrupted Entity times 5. Tier 1 Corrupted Entity times 256. Evaluation, Lone Wanderer of the Deep Sea. He obliterated a Tier 3 Corrupted Entity with a single volley of mysterious torpedoes in a staggeringly brief span. No one knows where he came from, yet all have memorized his name. Third place. Suhai stared at the ranking, his expression still calm. Zhao Tianmei stole a quiet glance at him from the co-pilot seat and said nothing. He felt no dissatisfaction. Instead, he analyzed the two names above him and the information they represented. Zhao Tianlei and Lin Shuang were both alliance leaders piloting Tier 3 submarines. Each had independently slain a Tier 3 Corrupted Entity, proving they each possessed trump weapons comparable to Suhai's dark-scale piercing torpedoes. Zhao Tianlei's elimination tally was higher. His Tier 3 vessel boasted superior sustained firepower, a clear equipment advantage. It seemed Suhai was not the only one wielding extraordinary advantages within these deep seas. The system announcement continued scrolling. Premium rewards were issued to the top competitors. The top 3 received exclusive hidden bonuses, and all players within the top 10% earned abundant supplies. Suhai opened his reward mail. System Mail, Contribution, Ranking Reward Rank 3. Congratulations, Suhai. You claimed third place with outstanding performance during the Abyss Defense Mission. As the sole unaffiliated player to break into the top 3 across the entire region, the system has prepared these exclusive rewards for you. Base Reward, 5,000 gold coins deposited to account. Ranking Reward, Tier 2 Evolution Energy Core, times 1 stored in inventory. Hidden Reward, Canyon Entry Pass times 1 stored in inventory. Note, the Canyon Entry Pass is mandatory passage to the next sea zone. Crossing the straight entrance is impossible without it. Keep it safe. Suhai's gaze lingered on the line, mentioning the Canyon Entry Pass. The Canyon Entry Pass. The straight entrance marked on his hand-drawn map, the location where all survivors would eventually converge, required official passage. The pass rested inside his inventory, a palm-sized translucent crystal card etched with flowing pale golden runes. Zhao Tianmei's reward panel popped open next. Her contribution value placed her within the top 15%. For a non-combat co-pilot, this was an impressive standing. The system granted her 10,000 gold coins and an assortment of basic materials. She whispered 10,000 gold coins from the co-pilot seat, barely containing her delight. With rewards claimed, players did not linger long. One after another, they departed the oppressive battlefield, navigating away from the corrupted zone. Suhai was about to close the reward panel when a familiar cold notification echoed in his mind. Ding. Daily Intelligence System. Today's intelligence has refreshed. Time remaining until next refresh, 23 hours, 59 minutes, and 47 seconds. A translucent 5-pointed star selection panel unfolded before him. Suhai's gaze swept back and forth across the 5 available options. He needed materials for Tier 2 evolution. Stellar iron, mithril, adamantite, premium-grade rubber. These rare materials could not be purchased via the trade channel. He would have to find them himself. And he knew the most efficient way to locate them. He stretched out a finger and tapped Resource Intelligence. The white light interface burst apart into streaks of silver radiance. A pale gold holographic map unfurled once more before his eyes. Then Suhai froze. The map clearly displayed the underwater terrain within a 20-kilometer radius centered on his position. Yet the density of glowing markers far exceeded anything he had witnessed before. Instead of sparse, scattered pinpricks of light, clusters pressed against one another, painting the entire underwater plain like a dusky red river of stars. A battlefield. Countless resource orbs littered the battleground, stretching ahead of the defensive line. From the first line of fire along the barrier to the edge of the contamination zone breach, from the reef clusters on the left to the mobile patrol route on the right. Every combat zone held vast quantities of spoils. Orbs dropped by perished contaminated entities, wreckage and weapon fragments from sunken submarines. Material chests half buried within the seabed sand. The numbers were staggering. A rough statistical tally generated automatically by Resource Intelligence popped up in the bottom right corner of the display. Recoverable items. Approximately 847. Suhai's pupils narrowed slightly. Over 800 recoverable items. This figure set a new record for a single intelligence scan since he descended into the deep sea. His previous largest haul had only amounted to several dozen items, obtained after looting dozens of chests amid ancient city ruins. Now more than 800 resources lay strewn across the underwater plain. Among them waited the legendary trait Boundless Space, ready for him to claim. But one thought immediately crossed his mind: time. Resource Intelligence remained active for only 30 minutes. Collecting more than 800 items scattered across several square kilometers of battlefield within half an hour was impossible for one person alone. He required submarine support. Zhao Tianmei. Suhai stood up from the pilot's seat and transferred the co-pilot's operational authority to primary control mode. Steer the submarine to hover above the battlefield. I will exit the vessel to retrieve resources. Time is limited. Remain in the cockpit and receive supplies as I bring them in. Understood. Suhai walked toward the hatch, swiftly donning his advanced diving suit. He strapped the miniature torpedo pistol to his waist and switched his headlamp to maximum brightness. He pushed open the hatch and slipped into the seawater. The seawater above the battlefield remained murky, yet Suhai possessed the stacked senses of the current rejector and shark perception. The position of every resource orb within a 1-kilometer radius illuminated clearly in his mind, like streetlights amid darkness. He began gathering supplies. The first cluster of orbs lay within the firing zone across the central plain. Corpses of contaminated entities mixed with glowing orbs. Some were half buried beneath silt, others drifting slowly with underwater currents. Suhai dove downward, gathering resources with both hands. The instant his fingertips made contact with an orb, its contents transferred automatically into his storage space. System notification chimes rang nonstop. Evolution shard times 5, steel times 12, rubber times 8, gold coins times 60, evolution shard times 3, steel times 7, gold coins times 35, degraded torpedo wreckage times 1, damaged armor plating times 2, steel cable times 1. He discovered far greater variation among the orbs than he had anticipated. They were not merely loot dropped by contaminated creatures. The battlefield was littered with all manner of wreckage, shattered torpedo fragments, armor plates torn from sunken submarines, scattered weapon fittings, fractured pipelines and cables. Nearly all of these items were low quality, marked with gray-tier labels such as degraded, damaged, and incomplete. Even so, they existed in enormous quantities. Low quality posed no problem. He possessed boundless fusion. Damaged armor plating could be fused into intact steel. Broken torpedoes could be reforged into standard torpedoes. Severed steel cables could be converted into rubber. The lower the quality, the greater the quantity available, which made fusion even more worthwhile. He had yet to locate the legendary trait, so he quickened his pace. From the central plain to the left reef clusters, onward to the mobile patrol zone. then toward the breach edge. Every area he swam through was stripped clean of orbs. He darted through the deep sea, shuttling back and forth to the submarine for nearly 20 minutes. The tally within his storage space surged relentlessly. Still, he encountered another issue. His storage space was nearing capacity. After upgrading the Orca-class attack submarine to Tier 2, its storage expanded from 15 cubic meters to 25. Yet facing the deluge of over 800 items, this volume was woefully insufficient. Damaged armor plating and torpedo wreckage alone occupied most of the space, and the remaining capacity shrank visibly by the second. As he collected resources, he ran quick calculations in his head. At this rate, the storage would fill completely after collecting only a few dozen more items, leaving hundreds of resources unreachable. Nearly 10 minutes remained on the resource intelligence timer. Wasting even a single minute would be a grave loss. Just then, current rejector perception picked up an extremely faint unique signal, roughly 1.5 kilometers outside the battlefield perimeter. It was unlike the scattered, isolated signals emitted by ordinary orbs. Instead, it was a concentrated source radiating a faint violet glow, buried half a meter below a stretch of low reefs on the eastern side of the battlefield. On the holographic map of resource intelligence, the location was marked with a far brighter purple beacon than all other light points. Suhai immediately recognized its significance. He swam over, knelt beside the reef cluster, and began digging. Layer upon layer of silt fell away, until his fingertips brushed the lid of a metal chest. The chest itself was modest in size, covered by a translucent pale purple membrane etched with intricate ancient patterns, identical to the membrane he had seen when acquiring eternal durability in the ancient city ruins. This had to be the legendary trait. His heartbeat accelerated. He excavated the chest fully from the silt, gripped either side of the lid, and heaved it open. Pale purple light surged upward from within, tinting the seawater several meters around it a dreamlike violet. Suspended at the center of the glow rested a palm-sized translucent trait card, its surface flowing with countless fine dark purple runes. The runes were as dense and complex as those seen on Eternal Durability and Boundless Fusion. He reached out and touched the card. Trait name: Boundless Space Tier. Legendary type: Storage Expansion Trait. Attributes: grants the vessel's storage the property of infinite capacity. Storage is no longer limited by physical volume and can hold any quantity of items. The weight of stored goods does not impact the submarine's cruising speed. Note: have you ever seen a cabinet that could contain an entire ocean? Now you possess one. Bear in mind that infinite space does not equal infinite convenience. The more items you store, the harder it becomes to locate what you need. Regular organization is recommended. A captain who fails to maintain tidy storage is not a capable captain. Suhai hovered beside the reef cluster clutching the card, unable to suppress a faint smile. Just as he worried about insufficient storage, the legendary treasure had appeared. He immediately selected to activate it. The card transformed into a gentle stream of purple light that flowed from his palm into the Orca-class attack submarine. An invisible yet distinctly perceptible shift swept across the submarine's storage hold. The space was no longer a finite rectangular container, but an endless void linked directly to his personal inventory. He would no longer need to repeatedly travel back to the submarine to offload goods. Resources remained sorted as before, yet beyond them, space stretched endlessly in all directions. Boundless space activated. Current stored item count: 587. Capacity: infinity. Suhai closed the panel and turned to resume gathering supplies. With boundless space active, his collection efficiency was completely unrestrained. Damaged armor plating, degraded torpedoes, incomplete steel scraps, fractured steel cables, he took everything. Whether intact evolution shards or broken rusted piping, any object recognized by the system as recoverable entered his storage. Deep within the battlefield, he discovered another dense concentration of resources he had overlooked earlier. Beside the wreckage of several slain contaminated entities lay numerous loot orbs dropped by mutated creatures. Among them were intact bone shark hides and complete bone shark vertebrae. These remains had been left behind after contaminated entities devoured mutated life forms, and their quality surpassed the wreckage he had collected previously. He also recovered special consumables, fragments of deep-sea hives, essence of mutated seaweed, swarms of hydrothermal shrimp. Their descriptions noted effects such as restores mental power, restores stamina, and raises maximum mental capacity. Precisely the supplies he urgently required. Suhai tore open several hive fragments and seaweed essence, chewing them on the spot. The flavor was indescribable. The hive fragments tasted cloyingly sweet with a bitter aftertaste, while the seaweed essence carried a briny tang akin to swallowing raw seawater. Even so, the effects were tangible. The mental power expended crafting dark-scale piercing torpedoes and continuously gathering resources rapidly replenished. The weariness weighing deep within his mind vanished entirely. As he picked up the final resource orb, the 30-minute countdown for resource intelligence hit 0. The holographic map faded slowly before his eyes, and the 20-kilometer underwater landscape sank back into darkness. Suspended in seawater, Suhai opened his storage panel to check. Total item count, 843. 843. In half an hour, he had cleared nearly all resources scattered across the battlefield. Most were low-tier materials, yet through boundless fusion, these base resources could be converted into the stellar iron, mithril, adamantite, and premium-grade rubber required for Tier 2 evolution. He turned and swam back toward the submarine. The hatch opened, water drained from the airlock, and he removed his diving mask. Zhao Tianmei twisted in her co-pilot seat. From Suhai's expression, she could tell this expedition had yielded tremendous gains. Suhai hung his diving suit on a hook and sat down in the pilot's seat. His first question was direct. Pull up the map panel. Where is the contamination zone now? Zhao Tianmei had already pulled the map onto the main display. On the cool blue underwater terrain chart, the boundary of the contamination zone had expanded significantly over the past 30 minutes. She pointed to a slow, creeping crimson region on the map. The contamination zone lies roughly 3 kilometers behind us. At its current spread rate, it will catch up to us in approximately 5 minutes. That will suffice, Suhai said. Full speed ahead to create distance. I will tally our supplies en route. Acknowledged. Zhao Tianmei pushed the control lever. The Orca-class attack submarine's nuclear reactor rumbled deeply. Propellers churned the seawater, angling the bow away from the contamination zone as the vessel accelerated to maximum speed. Suhai leaned back in the pilot's chair and opened his storage panel to inventory all resources collected. The system had automatically sorted everything by category. He unfolded the detailed list and scanned each line from top to bottom. Evolution shards, 1,247 steel, 2,834 units rubber, 1,956 units stellar iron, 37 units includes broken stellar iron fragments. Mithril, 12 units includes degraded mithril scraps adamantite, 8 units premium-grade rubber, 45 units. His gaze lingered on the lines listing rare materials. 37 units of stellar iron, 12 units of mithril, 8 units of adamantite, 45 units of premium-grade rubber. He still fell short of the Tier 2 evolution requirements. 100 stellar iron, 100 mithril, 100 adamantite, 100 premium-grade rubber. Yet he possessed nearly 3,000 units of ordinary steel, close to 2,000 units of basic rubber, and more than 1,000 evolution shards. With boundless fusion, these raw materials could be converted into high-tier materials. He scrolled further through the list and confirmed several key details. He already held large reserves of food and fresh water, and all mental power restoratives recovered from the battlefield were safely stored. In terms of ammunition, dozens of dark-scale piercing torpedoes remained. Though standard ordnance had been depleted during the defensive line mission, salvaged torpedo wreckage and weapon fragments could be fused to replenish stockpiles. Armed with boundless fusion and boundless space, the spoils from this operation would enable comprehensive upgrades to every part of the submarine. Suhai closed the item list and rose from the pilot's seat. He spoke to Zhao Tianmei. Maintain cruising speed and keep active sonar monitoring. Alert me immediately to any anomalies. Zhao Tianmei nodded, steadying both hands on the control levers. In the storage hold, Suhai stood before the workbench. Piles of steel, rubber, evolution shards, alongside 37 uneven chunks of stellar iron, 12 mithril scraps, and 8 pieces of adamantite surrounded him. He drew a deep breath and opened the fusion interface. First trial, steel fusion. He placed 2 units of ordinary steel into the interface. Violet light flashed, merging them into a single piece with marginally improved quality. Next, he inserted 4 units. The resulting steel rose another tier. 8 units, 16 units, 32 units. As the volume of material fused increased, ordinary steel climbed toward higher grades. When he fed 100 units of ordinary steel into the interface at once, the violet radiance blazed far brighter than before. Fusion completed, yielding a single ingot of refined steel shimmering with faint gold. Its tier jumped 3 levels straight, from ordinary to rare. 100 units of ordinary steel produced 1 unit of refined steel. He continued fusing multiple refined steel ingots together. The result was a dense, silvery metal ingot etched with fine textures, stellar iron. The conversion path from ordinary steel to refined steel, then to stellar iron, was confirmed. Second trial, rubber fusion. Ordinary rubber, refined rubber, premium-grade rubber. The same conversion sequence applied, requiring large quantities of base material for each tier advancement. Third trial, evolution shard fusion. Low-grade shards could combine to form higher-grade shards, which could then be fused further to create advanced energy crystals. A complete material upgrade chain unfolded before him. Ordinary materials, refined materials, rare materials, epic materials. Every advancement demanded several-fold, sometimes over 10-fold increases in raw material quantity. But with sufficient base supplies, the chain could continue indefinitely. Suhai looked at the mountains of ordinary steel and rubber filling the storage hold and wore a satisfied expression. These low-tier materials, worthless to other survivors, were endless feedstock for his fusion abilities. He drank a draught of concentrated deep-sea hive extract collected on the battlefield, feeling his mental power regenerate rapidly. Then began mass fusion operations. First batch, 500 units of ordinary steel, fused into 5 units of stellar iron. Second batch, 500 units of ordinary rubber, fused into 5 units of premium-grade rubber. Third batch, 300 evolution shards, fused into 30 high-grade evolution shards. Fourth batch, 5 broken stellar iron fragments, fused into 2 complete stellar iron units. Fifth batch, violet light flickered repeatedly inside the storage hold. Suhai's mental power drained time and again, only to be replenished by hive extract and seaweed essence. By the later stages, a dull ache throbbed in his temples, and tension coiled at the base of his skull, yet he did not pause. When the final batch of materials finished fusing, Suhai opened his panel to verify totals. Evolution shards, 500 requirements met. Stellar iron, 100 units requirements met. Mithril, 100 units obtained through further fusion of stellar iron adamantite. 100 units obtained through further fusion of mithril premium-grade rubber. 100 units requirements met. Tier 2 evolution energy core, 1 unit already possessed. Everything was ready. Suhai stared at the row of green requirements met markers on his interface and inhaled deeply. Ever since obtaining the Tier 2 evolution blueprint, he had prepared relentlessly for this moment. Now all 6 core materials required for Tier 2 evolution were gathered. He stretched his fingers stiff from prolonged fusion work, did not hesitate, and tapped Begin Evolution directly on the blueprint. The entire Orca-class attack submarine shattered violently. Zhao Tianmei let out a short gasp in the cockpit, gripping the controls tightly. Every gauge on the dashboard dropped to 0, lights cut out entirely, and even the low hum of the nuclear reactor fell silent. Then light ignited from deep within the submarine's core. Evolution shards dissolved into countless tiny motes drifting out from storage, flitting like fireflies through every compartment. Steel, rubber, stellar iron, mithril, and adamantite broke down into fundamental molecular structures, woven anew amid the radiance. The Tier 2 evolution energy core hovered at the center of the cockpit, its cool blue-white glow growing steadily brighter until Zhao Tianmei was forced to close her eyes. She heard the sound of metal reshaping. It was not the crude clang of hammering or welding, but a smooth, organic hum, akin to the subtle rustle of deep-sea creatures growing new shells. Old armor plating peeled away while new armor layers took shape. Rivets were replaced by molecular-level welding. Pipes were rearranged into more efficient layouts, and cables snaked anew within the bulkheads like a budding neural network. The cockpit expanded. When Zhao Tianmei opened her eyes, she found the already spacious command cabin had grown noticeably larger. The ceiling rose by at least half a meter, transforming the atmosphere from roomy to vast. The primary and co-pilot seats had been upgraded to tactical chairs fitted with shock absorption systems. Instrument panels stretched across 4 walls instead of 3, and the central holographic tactical display had doubled in size. Several new control panels with unknown functions lined the surrounding bulkheads. The submarine interface popped up automatically, lines of data refreshing steadily. Vehicle designation, Orca-class raider submarine. Grade, Tier 3 vehicle. Hull durability, 5,000/5,000 infinity. Maximum diving depth, 6,000 meters. Maximum speed, 80 knots. Power system, nuclear reactor legendary. Operational, unlimited power supply. Armament systems. Forward dual 8-cell heavy torpedo tubes. Total ordnance capacity, 128. Dorsal dual 4-cell vertical missile silos. Total ordnance capacity, 64. 6 small torpedo tubes mounted on both hull sides. Total ordnance capacity, 48. New addition, dorsal dual long-range cruise missile launch racks ordnance. 8. Oxygen generation, perfect life support system activated. Sonar system, phased array tactical sonar detection range, 8,000 meters, capable of tracking 256 targets simultaneously, with IFF threat classification and resource scanning functions. Storage space, infinity unlimited capacity. Special traits, nuclear reactor legendary, eternal durability legendary, boundless storage legendary, electrolyzer rare, seawater purification unit fine, gas compression filling equipment bronze. New defensive modules unlocked. Thorn armor unlocked at Tier 3. The hull surface is covered with micro-inductive spines. When mutated creatures make contact or bite the hull, the spines extend automatically and discharge high-voltage current, inflicting electric shock and physical piercing damage to attackers. Current output is adjustable. The maximum setting can instantly paralyze mutated creatures below Tier 2. Pulse electric field unlocked at Tier 3. Periodically emits a high-voltage pulsed electric field centered on the submarine, covering a radius of 200 meters. It deals electric damage to all hostile creatures within range. Small schools of fish can be eliminated in a single discharge. Large creatures suffer paralysis. Duration depends on target resistance. Pulse interval is adjustable, with a minimum cooldown of 15 seconds. Electric ray jamming wave unlocked at Tier 3. Simulates the biological electric field of deep-sea electric rays, releasing low-frequency interference waves. It disrupts enemy sonar detection and biological perception, granting the submarine partial stealth. Effective against both mechanical sonar and biological lateral line sensory systems. Maximum cruising speed under stealth is limited to 40 knots. Exceeding this speed will break stealth. Auto loot unlocked at Tier 3. The submarine automatically collects visible resources within 1 nautical mile. Standard crew complement, 1 to 6 personnel. Evaluation, from a killer whale to an orca. From a biting hunk of scrap metal to a genuine deep-sea predator. Your opponents have yet to realize they are not facing merely a submarine, but a mobile military base. Congratulations. You are now worthy of serious consideration from the leaders of top-tier alliances. Suhai stood at the center of the cockpit, nodding with satisfaction. He watched the scrolling data on the panel. Hull durability had jumped from 800 to 5,000, more than a 6-fold increase. Top speed rose from 65 knots to 80 knots. Diving depth expanded from 2,000 meters to 6,000 meters. The weapon system received a comprehensive overhaul. Dual 8-cell heavy torpedo tubes, dual 4-cell vertical missile silos, plus newly added long-range cruise missiles. Sonar detection range stretched from 2,000 meters to 8,000 meters, able to track 256 targets at once. What pleased him most were the 3 newly unlocked defensive modules, Thorn armor, pulse electric field, and electric ray jamming wave. These upgrades transformed the Orca-class raider submarine from a spiky metal can into a deep-sea hedgehog that electrocutes anything that touches it. If schools of mutant fish dared to charge and gnaw at the hull as they once had, there would be no need to waste torpedoes. Activating the pulse electric field alone would stun them all. Boss, Zhao Tianmei's voice came from the co-pilot's seat, thick with awe. Tier 3? You upgraded the submarine all the way to Tier 3 while we were underway. Suhai smiled faintly. Just lucky. He walked over to the pilot's seat and sat down, opening the storage interface to check remaining materials after evolution. After consuming materials for the Tier 2 upgrade, his storage still held massive stockpiles of meteorite iron, mithril, and adamantite. He had synthesized these rare materials step by step from ordinary steel and rubber. Though synthesis incurred substantial losses, his raw material reserves were immense. Nearly 3,000 units of steel and 2,000 units of rubber salvage from the battlefield still remained after crafting all evolution components. He no longer needed these surplus high-grade materials. He had not yet obtained the Tier 3 submarine evolution blueprint. But following the system's material progression rules, Tier 3 evolution would demand materials superior to adamantite. Meteorite iron, mithril, and adamantite counted as rare materials for Tier 2 upgrades, yet would become basic materials for Tier 3, required in far larger quantities. Without the Tier 3 blueprint, these materials were merely idle stock taking up storage space. They were undoubtedly scarce commodities right now. It made sense to sell them. Suhai opened the trade channel and began listing goods. He posted batches of meteorite iron, mithril, and adamantite in varying quantities. Prices were set slightly below the market average, but not drastically so. It was not out of generosity. He simply held far too much inventory and wanted a quick turnover. Seller. Suhai. Item. Meteorite iron times 50 large stock available. Bulk orders negotiable. Price. 450 gold coins per unit. Remarks. Core material for Tier 2 evolution. Guaranteed quality. Better rates for bulk purchases. Less than 10 seconds after the listing went live, the first private message popped up. Big shot. I need 5 meteorite iron. Can you cut the price a little? 400 gold each. I'm in urgent need. Suhai replied, 450. Firm price. The buyer hesitated for 2 seconds, then sent an immediate reply. Deal. 5 meteorite iron. Send the trade link. The first transaction completed. Immediately afterward, a flood of private messages poured in. Sir, do you have more mithril? I want 10 units. Adamantite. Anyone selling adamantite? I just advanced to Tier 2 and only need adamantite left. Meteorite iron, meteorite iron. I'll take all you have. Name your price. Where did you get so many rare materials? I searched for a week without finding a single piece of meteorite iron, and you put 50 up at once. Are you running a material bank? Suhai did not reply to every private message individually. Instead, he enabled automatic confirmation for trade listings. He posted the 3 materials in successive batches of 10 to 20 units each, maintaining a steady price around 450 gold coins. Every batch sold out within minutes of being listed. Continuous trade alerts chimed non-stop, and his gold coin balance climbed visibly, from several thousand to over 10,000, then 20,000, 25,000, 30,000, 35,000. Zhao Tianmei stared beside him, mouth agape. 38,000. You earned 38,000 gold in minutes. I only get 10,000 gold as reward for finishing a defense mission, yet you make that much just selling materials? Her tone brimmed with disbelief. Boss, where exactly did you get all these rare materials? I saw you working away in the storage bay for ages. Did you synthesize them yourself? Something like that, Suhai said calmly. He posted his final batch of adamantite on the trade channel, then closed the interface and pulled up the map to check the position of the contamination zone. The contamination continued spreading slowly behind them, still a considerable distance away. They had ample time. He leaned back in the pilot's chair and stretched his neck. Zhao Tianmei, hold current speed and maintain course. Zhao Tianmei steered steadily. The Orca-class raider submarine cruised smoothly across the abyssal plain at 40 knots. The phased array tactical sonar refreshed scans of surrounding waters every few seconds. No threats appeared within the 8,000-meter detection radius. Suhai opened the regional chat channel and skimmed through messages. His gaze locked onto a single number. Cold and stark in the upper right corner of the regional survivor statistics panel. Surviving players in Zone EC 7724, 124, 7831. Suhai stared at the figure for several seconds. He remembered clearly. Before the defense mission began, he had glimpsed the survivor count at over 4 million. 7,180,000 was the figure recorded after the Great Maelstrom. Over 4 million remained before the defense operation. Now, only 1,247,000. Nearly 3 million lives lost in a single defense mission. More than 70% of the surviving players had perished within 6 hours. Suhai's breathing deepened. He had been occupied fusing materials, collecting salvage, and upgrading the submarine, and had not checked these statistics until now. Seeing the number laid bare, he truly grasped how brutal the recent battle had been. Tier 3 contaminated entities unleashed mental shrieks covering the entire defensive line. The black miasma of Tier 2 contaminated creatures corroded hulls, while Tier 1 foes overwhelmed defenses through sheer numbers. His position on defense line 47 had the advantage of him holding back the Tier 3 overlord. He was supported by dark-scale armor-piercing torpedoes he had prepared in advance. What of defense lines without Tier 3 combat power or armor-piercing ordnance? What of positions where the entire crew lost control under the mental shriek, letting contaminated entities surge through unopposed? Suhai pushed the grim thoughts aside. He opened the world channel to read what other players were saying. Messages scrolled faster than ever, yet the tone was vastly different from the panic preceding the defense mission. Back then, the feed was filled with screams, pleas for help and despair. Now there was silence. A hollow, post-disaster quiet, so heavy many could not even bring themselves to curse. Occasional messages drifted by. Mechanics and crew are gone. 6 submarines on our defense line. I'm the sole survivor. My brother's gone. He piloted a modified Tier 1 boat, and a Tier 2 contaminated creature crushed vessel and crew alike. The last transmission I picked up on sonar was him saying, "Don't worry about me. Hold the line." I was part of a medical team. By the end of the defense, only our captain stayed lucid. He endured the mental shriek alone and torpedoed the last Tier 2 beast. When the mission ended, he collapsed in the pilot's seat, blood seeping from his 7 facial orifices. I asked for his name, but he logged off without reply, his avatar turning gray. I owe my life to a top player from an adjacent defense line. Their position secured victory early, and their captain brought his submarine over to support us, destroying a Tier 2 contaminated entity. The player left without a word, only posting one line in the channel. Keep moving forward. I don't know who he is, but I want to say thank you. Suhai read each message in silence. Then he spotted a new category of posts. Has anyone obtained a Canyon Passage ticket? Canyon Passage ticket? What's that? I just saw a screenshot posted on the trade channel. Top 3 finishers of the defense mission receive them as rewards. The system states entry to the next sea zone is impossible without one. The next sea zone? We've been sailing forward nonstop. The contamination zone chases us from behind. Where else can we go? That's the catch. The waters ahead are not endless. Eventually, everyone will be driven toward a straight entrance. A friend of mine serves in the auxiliary detachment of the Thunder Alliance. He said the Thunder Alliance leader bought intelligence from a returner. Only those holding Canyon Passage tickets can cross the strait into the next sea zone. Anyone without a ticket will be blocked by the energy barrier at the canyon entrance and swallowed by the advancing contamination zone. The channel fell quiet for more than 10 seconds after this message, then erupted into chaos. A returner? Are returners really real? The Wolf Alliance was hunting one before, claiming they would capture them to extract information. So the rumors were true. How do you get tickets besides placing top 3 in the defense mission? Word has it there are other methods. They can be excavated from ruins. High-tier ruin final chests have a low drop rate, and certain hidden quests reward them too, though chances are slim. What about regular players who didn't rank top 3 and can't clear high-tier ruins? Are we just meant to die? Stay calm. Rumor says tickets spawn near the canyon entrance. We might still have a chance once we arrive, though no one knows the exact locations. Damn it. This is forcing us to fight over them. Suhai closed the world channel, tapping his fingers lightly on the armrest. He had only just learned about Canyon Passage tickets, and he already possessed one inside his storage space. Now that this information had been broadcast publicly across the world channel, every player knew of the tickets, and everyone would fight ruthlessly to obtain them. As he mulled this over, another wave of messages appeared in the world channel. The Wolf Alliance is striking again. We just finished the defense mission, only 30% ammunition remaining, hulls riddled with damage. Our 5-person squad was anchored beside a kelp forest making repairs when a Wolf Alliance hunting unit charged out from behind reefs. Torpedoes sank 2 of our boats instantly. We never got a chance to retaliate. My brother was on one of those vessels. He survived 6 hours guarding the flank with rapid-fire cannons through the whole defense mission. He lived through the contaminated hordes, only to be blown up from behind by the Wolf Alliance's thugs. He didn't die fighting monsters. He died at the hands of other players. 30 members of our alliance took part in the defense mission. 6 perished. The remaining 24 were ambushed by the Wolf Alliance on the return voyage. They held more ammunition, fielded greater numbers, and hit anti-submarine missiles. 24 people, only 3 survived. 3. Is anyone willing to form a coalition? Put aside past grievances and unite to wipe out the Wolf Alliance. No one is safe while they roam free. The message remained pinned in the channel for nearly 2 minutes. No one responded. Recruitment announcements from the Rose Alliance, Mutual Aid Alliance, Free Alliance, Thunder Alliance, and others still sat at the top of the feed, yet none of their representatives spoke up in public chat. It was not that they had not seen the plea. Everyone understood the cost of launching an offensive against the Wolf Alliance. Fresh off the grueling defense mission, most crews were low on ammunition, damaged hulls, and drained of mental strength. Initiating another brutal battle now would mean sacrificing countless lives. The Wolf Alliance likely held back during the defense operation, conserving ammunition, sheltering behind other players when contaminated entities attacked. As soon as the mission concluded, they relocated to areas crowded with vulnerable survivors. Their magazines were full, hulls intact, and their members mentally rested. No one wished to lead an exhausted army against a well-prepared pack of predators. Suhai watched the isolated call for alliance, waiting a while longer, but no replies came. He shut down the world channel. Standing from the pilot's seat, he headed toward the storage bay. He had expended a great many dark-scale armor-piercing torpedoes during the defense mission. While dozens still remained in stock, his encounter with the Tier 3 contaminated entity made him raise his standards for ordnance. No matter how vast stockpiles of conventional ammunition grew, they were merely expendable against high-tier foes. True trump cards lay in condensed, power-amplified fused ordnance. He needed more. Inside the storage bay, the workbench was piled high with torpedo wreckage, fractured warheads, and weapon debris salvaged from the battlefield. To other players, these degraded munitions were nothing but scrap metal. For Suhai, they were raw materials for fusion. He opened the fusion interface and drew a deep breath. First round, 20 pieces of degraded torpedo wreckage were placed into the fusion array. Purple light flickered. The broken fragments were broken down into fundamental matter, then compressed and restructured. 3 seconds later, 5 intact standard torpedoes materialized on the workbench. Second round, fusing 10 standard torpedoes. Purple radiance flared. The 10 torpedoes decomposed, converged, and compacted within the glow. 6 seconds later, 1 dark-scale armor-piercing torpedo took shape, its dark golden runes shimmering faintly under the lights. Third round, fourth round, fifth round. Fine beads of sweat formed across Suhai's forehead. Between fusion cycles, he lifted a container of deep-sea hive fragment extract and drank mouthfuls. A sweet fishy taste spread through his mouth. The medicine surged through his bloodstream toward his brain, restoring half his depleted mental energy. Then consumption resumed, followed by replenishment, repeated over and over. Purple light flickered continuously inside the storage bay, like an undying beacon in the abyssal depths. The stock of dark-scale piercing torpedoes on the ammunition racks rose from dozens to over 100, and then from 100 to 200. When the last batch of materials finished fusion, Suhai leaned against the warehouse wall, his chest heaving with heavy, labored breaths. His temples throbbed sharply, and the tension at the back of his head felt like a rubber band stretched to its absolute limit. He closed his eyes, letting his mental power recover slowly. On the ammunition racks, the count of dark-scale piercing torpedoes halted at 360. Stockpiles of standard ammunition also climbed back above 2,000 rounds. Suhai opened his eyes, gazing at the full row of dark-scale piercing torpedoes marked with faint blue indicator lights on the racks, and nodded in satisfaction. This ammunition reserve would sustain him through another brutal battle. He rubbed his temples, about to fuse more depth charge bombs. Zhao Meili's voice suddenly came from the cockpit. It held no trace of panic, only quiet surprise. "Boss," her voice crackled over the communicator. "Can you come take a look?" Suhai walked out of the warehouse and headed for the cockpit. Zhao Meili sat in the co-pilot's seat, one finger pointing out the viewport while her other hand rested on the control lever. Beyond the porthole, a school of sharpfang silver-scale fish savagely gnawed at the submarine's hull. There were roughly 40 to 50 of them, ranging from half a meter to 1 meter long. Their scales glinted a cold gray blue in the dim sea water. Dense rows of teeth clamped against the hull, producing a rapid, unnerving tapping sound. Unlike the previous incident where the school had chased them for over a dozen kilometers, Suhai felt no shaking this time, nor the shrill screech of metal being chewed apart. All he heard was the impact of fish teeth striking the hull, followed by another sound, the crackle of electric current. The Tier 3 defense module of the Orca-class raider submarine activated automatically in that instant. Thorn armor, tiny sensory spines covering the hull surface extended the moment the fish bit down. Each spine was several centimeters long, its tip crackling with high-voltage blue electricity. When sharpfang silver-scale fish sank their teeth into the spines, electric current surged through their bodies from mouth to tail. A dozen fish convulsed at once, falling away from the hull and sinking into the deep sea, bellies upturned. Pulse electric field, a circular blue high-voltage pulse aura rippled outward, centered on the submarine, covering a 200-meter radius. The instant the aura washed over the school, every sharpfang silver-scale fish stiffened, scales standing on end. They immediately lost all motor function, drifting crookedly toward the seabed like stunned bait fish. Pulses triggered every 15 seconds. After the first pulse swept through, a third of the school vanished. The second pulse eliminated 2/3. By the third pulse, not a single swimming fish remained outside the porthole. The entire sequence took less than a minute. Zhao Meili never touched a single weapon launch button the whole time. She simply maintained cruising speed and watched wave after wave of fish charge forward, get electrocuted, and sink. On the sonar screen, the signatures of fish within the pulse field winked out one after another, like candle flames snuffed out by an invisible hand. The submarine's automatic salvage system kicked into action as well. Within a 1 nautical mile radius, glowing orbs dropped by the dead sharpfang silver-scale fish were automatically drawn into storage space. System alerts chimed continuously, and the numbers for evolution shards, steel, rubser, and gold coin resources and storage climbed steadily. Killed Sharpfong silver scale fish times 47 auto loot. Evolution shards times 13, steel times 18, rubber times 9, gold coins times 180. Zhao Meili stared at the kill tally popping up on the panel, her mouth hanging open. She glanced down at her hands, then back at the slowly sinking fish corpses beyond the viewport. She lifted both hands, turning them over and over again. I didn't do anything, she said, her voice thick with surreal disbelief. I just sailed straight ahead. They rushed up to bite us, and wound up electrocuting themselves. Wait, they electrocuted themselves? No, we electrocuted them. Or rather, the boat did. I didn't lift a finger at all. She turned to Su Hai, her eyes wide with shock. Boss, isn't this submarine ridiculously overpowered? I didn't even fire a torpedo, and its passive defenses wiped out an entire Tier 1 fish swarm, and it automatically collects all the drops too. Su Hai leaned beside the pilot's chair, watching her worldview get upended, the corners of his mouth tugging upward faintly. You'll get used to it, he said. A Tier 3 submarine holds absolute dominance over Tier 1 fish swarms. Keep navigating. I'm going to rest a while. Zhao Meili nodded mechanically, returning her hands to the control levers. As she watched the fading blips of fish corpses on the sonar display, she silently reinforced her resolve to stick close to Su Hai. Time slipped by. Zhao Meili's voice cut through the communicator once more, her tone completely transformed. Where before she had been relaxed and astonished, now she sounded tense and urgent. Boss, you need to see this immediately. Su Hai roused from light sleep and strode back to the cockpit. Zhao Meili had projected the phased array tactical sonar feed onto the main display. At the center of the screen, 5 signatures moved at high speed, one leading, for in pursuit. The forward signature bore a pale green Allied identification marker. Its silhouette was compact, moving extremely fast along an erratic trajectory, clearly fleeing for its life. The 4 trailing signatures glowed red, marked as unknown threats. They spread into a fan formation, flanking the green target to cut off escape routes. The one being chased, Zhao Meili pulled up precise sonar identification data and pointed to the text on screen, is the Lightning, Zhou Xiaoming's submarine. Su Hai's pupils narrowed. He zoomed in the sonar view. The Lightning's hull durability had fallen to less than a quarter. Tiny bubbles leaked from its rear thrusters. Cracks marred the propeller. The 4 pursuing submarines all bore a prominent wolf head insignia on their hulls. They outpaced the Lightning by a wide margin, steadily closing the gap. Every volley left fresh scars across the Lightning's hull. Su Hai's expression darkened. He sent a message to Zhou Xiaoming on the squad channel. Zhou Xiaoming, is that you being chased by 4 submarines ahead? A reply popped up almost instantly. It was not text, but a voice message. Zhou Xiaoming's voice trembled with heavy gasps and suppressed sobs. Muffled explosions and the shrill scrape of metal under impact echoed in the background. Captain, it's you. Yes, it's me. They've hunted me for nearly 20 minutes. After finishing the defense line mission, I passed ancient city ruins and found a Tier 3 submarine evolution blueprint inside. I think someone spotted me. Right after I stored the blueprint in my inventory, these 4 submarines surged out from behind the reefs. They demanded I hand over the blueprint, or they'd sink me. Another explosion cut her off mid-sentence. She resumed speaking, rushing her words faster than before. They claim to be part of the Wolf Alliance. They say every valuable resource in these waters belongs to them, and warn me to cooperate. I stashed the blueprint deep in my inventory. Even if they blow me up, they'll never get it. Captain, I know this blueprint is incredibly valuable. I originally planned to save it for myself later, but now, her tone hardened abruptly. Captain, I'm giving you the blueprint. A trade request appeared before Su Hai. Player Zhou Xiaoming offers item. Submarine Tier 3 Evolution Blueprint ×1. Transfer price, 0 gold coins. Note, Captain, take it. I'd rather give it to you than let them seize it. Su Hai stared at the label and the attached note, falling silent for 2 seconds. This was not the first time Zhou Xiaoming had given him items free of charge. During the defense line mission, she had gifted him 2 jars of deep-sea royal jelly she had crafted. Back then, his mental power had been nearly exhausted in the warehouse, and her royal jelly had solved his urgent crisis. Now, while fleeing the Wolf Alliance's pursuit, she voluntarily transferred the Tier 3 evolution blueprint to him. This young girl had never asked for anything in return, never begged for aid, from the day they met. Su Hai sent only 4 words in reply. Hold on. He closed the trade window, slipped into the pilot's seat, and rested both hands on the primary weapons control panel. Zhao Meili, he said coldly, full power ahead. Target those 4 Wolf-marked submarines straight ahead. Receive. Zhao Meili jammed the control lever all the way forward. The nuclear reactor of the Orca-class raider submarine let out a low roar. Within seconds, its speed surged from 40 knots to 80 knots. The bow cut through seawater, charging straight toward Zhou Xiaoming's position. On the phased array tactical sonar, data for the 4 Wolf-head submarines labeled itself one by one. Wolftooth 1 escort craft, Tier 1 modified submarine, hull durability 420/420, equipped with 2 times quadruple torpedo tubes. Wolftooth 2 escort craft, Tier 1 modified submarine, hull durability 398/420, minor damage to port side, equipped with 2 times quadruple torpedo tubes. Wolftooth 3 assault craft, Tier 2 modified submarine, hull durability 580/580, equipped with 1 times 6 tube torpedo launcher, 1 times rear missile silo. Wolftooth 400 craft, Tier 2 modified submarine, hull durability 620/620, equipped with 2 times 6 tube torpedo launchers, 1 times depth charge dispenser. 2 Tier 1 vessels, 2 Tier 2 vessels. 88. This was a standard hunting squad configuration for the Wolf Alliance, far stronger than the 3 Tier 1 submarines he had eliminated previously. 80 knots underwater was an overwhelming speed. On the tactical sonar, the signature of the Orca-class raider submarine closed in on the battlefield almost like a teleport. The 4 Wolf-head submarine's sonar systems clearly detected his approach. Their formation shifted. 91. 2 of them abandoned the pursuit of Zhou Xiaoming, turning their bows to intercept Su Hai. A gruff voice boomed over the public channel. Submarine ahead, listen up. We are Wolf Alliance 5th Hunting Squad. Stay out of this. Turn back if you know what's good for you. We're only chasing that lightning. This has nothing to do with you. 94. Su Hai did not respond. 95. He fully opened the hatches of the rear vertical missile silos, disengaged safety locks on the forward 8 heavy torpedo tubes, and activated rapid fire mode for the 6 auxiliary torpedo tubes on the flanks. Rows of indicator lights lit up on the weapons panel for dark-scale piercing torpedoes and standard ordnance. 97. The voice from the public channel returned, even more arrogant. You hear me? Get lost if you want to survive. Do you have any idea who we are? We're the Wolf Alliance. Attacking us means declaring war on the entire alliance. Are you looking to die? Su Hai pressed the launch switch. First volley. 12 Sea Spear 3 anti-ship missiles surged forth simultaneously, dragging 12 white wake trails. They split into 2 groups, 6 targeting Wolftooth 1 on the left flank, 6 aimed at Wolftooth 2 on the right. The missiles arced through the seawater, locking onto the 2 Tier 1 submarines from multiple angles. Wolftooth 1 and Wolftooth 2 reacted reasonably fast. They immediately launched interceptor torpedoes and veered sharply to evade. Yet the precision targeting from the Orca-class's phased array sonar far outmatched the processing capacity of their jamming systems. 2 missiles were intercepted and detonated mid-flight. The remaining 10 struck home, slammed into Wolftooth 1's hull. 3 hit its port side, and 1 slipped through a gap beside the torpedo tubes, exploding next to its ammunition rack. The shockwave from the secondary detonation tore off the entire forward section of Wolftooth 1. The cockpit and its crew were ripped apart by the blast. 6 missiles hammered Wolftooth 2. 2 struck directly atop the existing damage on its port flank. The missiles penetrated the breach and detonated inside the hull, splitting Wolftooth 2 cleanly in two. 110. The 2 explosions rang out nearly simultaneously, blooming into roiling fireballs across the abyssal plain. The arrogant voice on the public channel fell silent for a brief moment. Then it twisted with rage. Damn it. Wolftooth 1. Wolftooth 2. Respond. Respond. What the hell? Who are you? Who the hell are you? Su Hai offered no reply. He locked his second volley onto the remaining 2 Tier 2 submarines. Wolftooth 3 and Wolftooth 4 reacted far quicker than the first pair. As Tier 2 vessels, their captains were seasoned veterans. The instant Su Hai unleashed his opening strike, they executed tactical countermeasures. Both submarines deployed sonar decoy flares and split apart left and right, attempting to encircle Su Hai from 2 directions. Wolftooth 3's captain roared over the public channel. Full ordnance launch. Sink him. 118. Wolftooth 4's captain spoke in a colder, deeper tone. Stay calm. He's alone. We have 2 Tier 2 submarines, superior firepower. Pinch him from left and right and seal off all escape routes. In an instant, the full firepower of the 2 Tier 2 submarines poured forth. Wolftooth 3 fired its 6-tube torpedo launcher and rear missile silo at once, sending 6 torpedoes plus 4 missiles surging towards Su Hai from the left. Wolftooth 4 activated its 6-tube torpedo array and depth charge dispenser. 6 torpedoes closed in from the right, while depth charges detonated ahead of Suhai's path to erect a wall of shockwaves. 10 torpedoes, for missiles, 8 depth charges blocked every evasion vector available to the Orca-class raider submarine from 3 directions. It was textbook crossfire tactics, pincer attack from both sides, a barrier blocking forward movement, leaving the prey nowhere to run. Suhai did not dodge. He did not even order Zhao Meili to execute evasive maneuvers. Charge straight through, he said. Zhao Meili shot him a glance, her lips parting, yet she said nothing. She bit her lower lip, tightening her grip on the controls, holding speed steady at 80 knots as the bow headed directly into the fire network. The torpedoes arrived first. 6 torpedoes slammed into the Orca-class raider submarine's hull simultaneously. Blazes of explosion lit up outside the viewport, and shockwaves made the cockpit lights flicker faintly. Once the flames faded, not a single scratch marked the hull. Eternal durability. Next came the missiles. For missiles descended from above, striking the submarine's stern and bow. The blast shockwaves were stronger than those of the torpedoes. A water cup on the console rattled, and Zhao Meili swayed slightly under the impact. When the shock dissipated, the hull remained intact. The pulse electric field activated automatically, melting all shrapnel from the missile detonations. No fragment touched the hull. Then came the depth charges. 8 depth charges erupted ahead, forming that wall of shockwaves meant to block Suhai's advance. If he had swerved to evade torpedoes and missiles, he would have crashed straight into this barrier and sustained hull damage. But Suhai never evaded the torpedoes and missiles. He charged directly through their explosion zones, then passed straight through the wall of depth-charge shockwaves. 139. Shockwave damage to the hull, 0. Wolftooth 3's captain shouted over the public channel, panic finally bleeding into his voice. Impossible. We can't hurt it. The missiles don't even scratch the paint. What kind of vessel is this? Wolftooth 4's captain's tone shifted to disbelief. That can't be. Is he Tier 2? No, this speed. He's Tier 3. Tier 3 submarine. Retreat. Fall back immediately. It was already too late. Suhai unleashed his second volley the moment he cleared the shockwave barrier. He did not target one vessel alone. He locked onto both at once. 6 dark-scale piercing torpedoes split into 2 groups, 3 veering left, 3 right. Runes etched on the torpedo warheads trailed 6 faint blue light trails through the seawater. Armor-piercing and target tracking properties activated, reducing enemy evasion odds by 90%. 149. Wolftooth 3 and Wolftooth 4 deployed sonar jamming flares simultaneously to disrupt the torpedo guidance systems. The jamming worked to a degree. 2 dark-scale piercing torpedoes veered off course, but the remaining 4 stayed locked on. Their agile mid-course adjustments rendered Wolftooth 3 and Wolftooth 4's evasive turns futile. 3 torpedoes punched through Wolftooth 3's hull. Armor-piercing warheads tore through Tier 2 plating and detonated inside the vessel. The dark-scale warhead's dual-stage inward collapse, outward blast damage mechanism unleashed its full power. The projectile first imploded inward, concentrating explosive force within a narrow radius to pierce every internal bulkhead before detonating outward, tearing the submarine apart from within. Wolftooth 3's rear missile silo was blown away, its engine compartment ruptured, and the cockpit shattered by shockwaves. The hull snapped into 3 segments, its wreckage sinking amid roiling explosions. 156. A depth charge launcher embedded within Wolftooth 4 detonated. The explosion triggered a chain reaction. More than a dozen depth charges stored inside the launcher went off simultaneously. The blast force originated at Wolfhead 4's stern, racing along the entire hull all the way to the bow, tearing the submarine apart into a string of blazing fireballs. The crew inside the cockpit lost consciousness the instant the sympathetic detonation erupted. Debris and fragments blasted outward across the abyssal plain, leaving a ruin zone dozens of meters wide. Destroy Wolfhead 4. Silence fell over the battlefield. From the launch of the first missile to the annihilation of the final Wolfhead submarine, the whole engagement lasted mere minutes. Wreckage from the 4 submarines littered the seafloor, fractured hull plating, twisted torpedo tubes, and shattered ammunition fragments slowly drifting downward through the deep sea. Plumes of black smoke and bubbles gurgled out from cracks in the wreckage, ascending toward the unseen surface far above. Suhai closed the weapon's interface and flexed his fingers. Right then, Zhou Xiaoming's hurried, anxious voice echoed over the private channel. Captain, are you all right? Her heart had nearly stopped when she watched Suhai charge headfirst into the enemy fire network. She had witnessed dozens of torpedoes and missiles slamming into the Orca-class assault submarine, engulfing the vessel in roaring flames. She had called out to him repeatedly over the private channel, her tone thick with suppressed sobs. Suhai replied, "I'm fine." There was a brief pause before Zhou Xiaoming spoke again, her voice growing even more agitated. "I saw all those torpedoes hit you. Are you truly unharmed? Is there any damage to the hull? Do you want me to come over and assist with repairs?" Her words cut off abruptly. On the Lightning sonar display, the Orca-class assault submarine slowly emerged from clouds of explosion smoke. Its hull bore not a single mark. No minor dents, no scratched armor. The vessel was utterly, completely intact. Pulsing electric blue light flickered around the hull from the pulse electric field. Tiny thorns belonging to the thorn armor glinted faintly across the surface, resembling living scales stretched over steel. The submarine sailed out of the haze, imposing and unshakable. Zhou Xiaoming stared at the undamaged contact on the sonar screen, glanced at the shattered remains of the 4 Wolfhead submarines beside it, then looked back at the Orca-class vessel whose hull lacked even a scratch. Only one thought lingered in her mind. She absolutely had to stick close to this powerful ally. "Captain," her voice came through the private channel, tangled with a whirlwind of emotions. Awe, gratitude, admiration, and the lingering fragility of surviving a near-death experience. "Thank you. I thought I was going to die this time." Suhai reduced speed to cruising velocity and told Zhao Tianmei to maneuver the submarine to hover beside the Lightning. The Lightning's hull was covered in dents and fissures left by torpedo strikes. A half-meter-long rent ran along the port side, steadily leaking seawater. Cracks marred the propellers on the stern thrusters, producing a shrill metallic screech as they rotated. The hull durability sat at less than 1/10 of its maximum value. The craft risked breaking apart at any moment. Suhai activated the video comms and saw Zhou Xiaoming in her cockpit. She still looked as petite as she had during the defense mission, yet far more worn out. Her eyes were puffy, faint tear streaks streaked her cheeks, and messy hair clung to her forehead. Her hands remained clamped around the control sticks, knuckles trembling from prolonged tension. "Report your status," Suhai ordered. "The Lightning, it can hold out for less than an hour more." Zhou Xiaoming bit her lower lip, struggling to keep her voice steady despite obvious tremors. "Hull durability is critically low. The stern thrusters could fail at any time. All weapons ammunition is exhausted, and 1 torpedo tube is destroyed. The oxygen generator still functions, but the engine cooling system is breached. I can only maintain a speed of roughly a dozen knots." Suhai fell silent for a moment. If he turned away now, Zhou Xiaoming would almost certainly not survive the day. The Lightning was too heavily damaged. Even a swarm of low-tier mutated fish could sink her easily. Warguild hunting squads roamed these waters, and her odds of survival alone were practically zero. "Captain," Zhou Xiaoming spoke first, her shaking tone replaced by firm resolve. "I request to join your submarine. I know what you're thinking. This broken ship of mine would only drag you down, but I am not useless." Suhai watched her. "I told you before, I possess a talent for crafting support consumables. The deep-sea royal jelly I gave you during the defense mission was made by me. I have many other recipes, formulas to restore mental energy, replenish stamina, temporarily boost stats, counteract toxins, and resist mental contamination. As long as I have raw materials, I can produce them all. I can serve as the team's logistics provider, the group's support." She spoke rapidly, fearing Suhai would cut her off. "Besides, your submarine will keep growing larger, and you will definitely need more pilots later on. I've commanded the Lightning single-handedly all this time. My nerves aren't the steadiest, but my piloting skill is solid. Your submarine is Tier 3 now. Managing it alone will grow increasingly taxing. You and Sister Zhao Tianmei are only 2 people. You need extra crew. I won't rely on your resources for nothing." Zhou Xiaoming rummaged inside her storage space and held an object up to the camera. "This, a treasure map. I pieced it together myself using fragmented information gathered from the Trade Channel and World Channel. It marks the location of an undiscovered ruin within this sea region. It holds the precise coordinates of a Tier 3 ruin. I can hand this treasure map over to you." Suhai looked at the hand-drawn map, carefully sealed inside a waterproof pouch in Zhou Xiaoming's grasp, then at her tear-streaked, yet stubborn face. He recalled the 2 jars of royal jelly she had given him freely during the defense mission, and how decisively she had surrendered the Tier 3 blueprint earlier. Zhao Tianmei gently nudged Suhai's arm. She said nothing, yet Suhai understood her gaze. Give her a chance. She knew what it was like to struggle alone in these endless deep waters. She had lived through it herself. Suhai met Zhou Xiaoming's eyes and said evenly, "Sign the subordination agreement." Zhou Xiaoming froze. A subordination agreement meant the leading party held full command authority and control over resource allocation. Subordinate crew must obey all orders from the leader, and the agreement could only be terminated with the leader's consent. It meant handing complete authority over to him. Hesitation flickered briefly across her wide eyes before hardening into determination. "I'll sign." A system agreement panel popped up, listing every clause of the subordination agreement line by line on screen. Without a shred of hesitation, Zhou Xiaoming pressed her palm print at the bottom of the document. Subordination agreement finalized. Subordinate party, Zhou Xiaoming, officially enlisted into Suhai's squad. Current squad crew, Suhai leading party, Zhao Tianmei subordinate, Zhou Xiaoming subordinate. The instant the agreement took effect, Zhou Xiaoming let out a long breath. It was not a sigh of resentment, but relief. The weight she had carried alone for so long could finally be shared with others. Her shoulders slumped, and her overstrained mind relaxed marginally. "Pack your belongings and bring every supply you can carry," Suhai instructed. "Abandon the lightning. Let it sink." Zhou Xiaoming nodded vigorously and began gathering her things. Minutes later, the hatch of the Orca-class assault submarine opened, seawater rushing inward. Zhou Xiaoming swam out from the lightning's hatch, carrying a waterproof backpack larger than her frame. She kicked awkwardly with her flippers, heading toward the Orca-class vessel. Her dive suit bore slashes from shrapnel, and a crack ran across her diving mask, leaving her looking thoroughly worn and vulnerable. She swam through the hatch and stood inside the drainage compartment. Once the water drained away, she removed her fractured mask. Then she stared in shock. She beheld the Orca-class assault submarine's cockpit. It was far bigger and more breathtaking than what she had observed on sonar. Instrument panels lined every wall. A massive central holographic tactical display loomed overhead, and leather tactical seats stood ready. Down the corridor, she spotted separate private cabins. In the open kitchen area, hot pot base and dipping sauce bowls sat unfinished on the counter. A faint spicy aroma hung in the air. The constant temperature system held the cabin steady at 24 degrees Celsius. Anti-slip alloy plating covered the floors, and spare dive suits and weapons hung mounted on the walls. She turned toward the kitchen. The storage racks were neatly stacked with self-heating rice, canned luncheon meat, chili sauce, canned cola. A constant temperature wine cabinet in the corner held several unopened bottles of red wine. She glanced down at her tattered waterproof backpack. Inside were merely a few packs of hardtack, 2 spare oxygen tanks, a patched old dive suit, and stacks of rough hand-drawn map drafts. "This," she swallowed hard, her voice faint with disbelief. "This isn't a survival submarine for the end of the world. It's practically a deep-sea resort." Zhao Tianmei stifled a laugh. Zhou Xiaoming's reaction mirrored her own when she first boarded. Ignoring her exclamation, Suhai gestured toward a console on the right side of the cockpit. "That will be your station. It acts as an auxiliary weapons control panel, alongside management for logistics, supplies, and ingredient processing. You will prepare your support consumables here using your talent. Retrieve raw materials from the warehouse, and store finished products back inside for unified distribution." Zhou Xiaoming nodded firmly and set her backpack beside her new station before stepping to the console. Suhai transmitted a crew handbook to her, containing cabin layouts and emergency escape routes. "Understood, Captain." Zhou Xiaoming took a seat in the co-pilot spot beside Zhao Tianmei and began familiarizing herself with the interface. She gazed out the viewport at the dark blue seawater and faint glowing seaweed drifting in the distance, then glanced at the rows of green status indicator lights on her console. She leaned toward Zhao Tianmei and whispered, "Sister Tianmei, is the captain always like this?" Zhao Tianmei turned her head and replied quietly, "You'll get used to it. When I first came aboard, I thought I was dreaming too. Later I learned that dreams like this happen every single day when you follow him." Zhou Xiaoming looked out at the hazard-filled yet treasure-laden deep sea, then toward the quiet, decisive man in the pilot's seat. A silent thought crossed her mind. She had made the right gamble. Meanwhile, seated in the pilot's chair, Suhai examined the Tier 3 Evolution Blueprint Zhou Xiaoming had turned over. Submarine Tier 3 Evolution Blueprint. Rank, Tier 3. Evolution Requirements. Evolution Shards, 2,000 units. Jellyfish Gel, 200 units. Manganese Nodule Alloy, 200 units. Beast Core, 200 units. Energy Crystal, 200 units. Tier 3 Evolution Energy Core, 1 piece. Suhai leaned back in his seat, tapping his fingers lightly against the armrest. The materials required for Tier 3 Evolution were far more complex than Tier 2. As he pondered, A new alert popped up on the submarine's control panel. Coordinate marked. Tier 3 ruin source. Squad member Zhou Xiaoming's treasure map. Distance from current location, approximately 67 kilometers. Zhao Tianmei saw confirmation, and Su Hai nodded. Received. Zhao Tianmei pushed the control stick. The Orca-class assault submarine's nuclear power plant rumbled lowly, its bow cutting through the deep sea as it accelerated toward the Tier 3 ruin. Su Hai leaned back in his chair, shifting his gaze from the evolution blueprint to Zhou Xiaoming standing awkwardly in the corner of the cockpit. She still wore the worn dive suit she had brought over from the Lightning, marked with multiple shrapnel tears, and the cracks stretched diagonally across her mask. Her damp hair clung to her forehead, and dried tear tracks left faint pale streaks across her face. She looked just like a stray kitten pulled out of a raging storm, exhausted and vulnerable. Zhao Tianmei. Su Hai tilted his chin toward the co-pilot's seat. Take her back to wash up and get sorted out first. Zhou Xiaoming's eyes widened in surprise. A shower? We have showers on the submarine. Zhao Tianmei stood from the co-pilot's seat, smiling knowingly. You have no idea. This isn't some Spartan survival craft. We have every comfort you could ask for. Hot water runs 24 hours a day. The bathroom has shampoo, body wash, and hair conditioner. The kitchen refrigerator is packed fuller than a convenience store back on land. Come on, I'll show you. She draped an arm around Zhou Xiaoming's shoulders and guided her down the corridor. Zhou Xiaoming kept repeating hot water and hair conditioner under her breath, as if hearing something utterly beyond her understanding. Su Hai added another instruction. She looks famished. Fix her a meal after she finishes washing. Zhao Tianmei tossed back an okay gesture without turning her head. Got it, boss. Leave it to me. Once the bathroom door shut, the sound of running water soon echoed from the end of the corridor. Zhou Xiaoming stood beneath the warm shower. Steady hot water streamed over her head, rolling down her shoulders, along her back, and all the way to her ankles. She could barely recall the last time she'd had a proper hot shower. Aboard the Lightning, she only wiped herself down with damp towels. Cold water left her skin tight and dry, salt crystals tangled in her hair that crinkled whenever she moved. Here, the water temperature stayed perfectly regulated, slightly warmer than body temperature, wrapping around her gently. The mint-scented shampoo formed soft, rich foam carrying a crisp herbal fragrance. She washed her hair twice and worked conditioner through the strands. It felt as if her brittle, salt-damaged hair had returned to normal. When she stepped out of the bathroom, she looked revitalized. Her hair was half-dried and fell loosely over her shoulders. The tear marks had washed away, revealing her fair, delicate features. She changed into the only clean outfit she kept in her backpack, a plain white short-sleeved t-shirt and dark blue shorts. Both were size small, still loose on her frame. She wore soft slippers as she walked barefoot along the corridor. She halted the moment she reached the cockpit doorway. A rich, overwhelming spicy aroma drifted out from the kitchen section. Zhao Tianmei had brought the hot pot back to a boil. Red chili oil bubbled and churned, the scent of chili peppers, Sichuan peppercorns, and beef tallow filling the entire cockpit like a late-night diner. Ingredients covered the counter. Thinly sliced fish fillets, marbled canned luncheon meat, washed lettuce and bok choy, soaked dried shiitake mushrooms, tender tofu, and kelp knots. A plate of deep-sea snow crab claws Su Hai had acquired through the trade channel sat there too, their shells glowing warm orange under the lights. 2 bowls of dipping sauce waited on either side of the counter, one with garlic and sesame oil, another with sesame paste mixed with chili sauce. Zhou Xiaoming's eyes stretched wider than when she learned there were showers available, nearly popping from her sockets. A hot pot. Her voice sounded distant, as if trapped in a dream. A boiling hot pot, with dipping sauces. Zhao Tianmei planted her hands on her hips beside the counter, laughing at her stunned expression. Shocked. I reacted exactly the same way when I first saw the boss eating hot pot. My research vessel felt like a rusted iron coffin, while this submarine is somewhere people can actually live. Don't just stand there. Take a seat. The food is ready. She called toward the pilot's seat. Boss, come eat too. The broth will turn bitter if it simmers too long. Eat while it's fresh. Su Hai set the Orca-class assault submarine to maintain cruising speed toward the ruin, then rose from the pilot's seat and sat down beside the counter. Zhou Xiaoming took a seat across from him, resting her hands neatly on her knees and sitting ramrod straight like a school student. Yet her gaze never strayed from the bubbling chili oil, and she swallowed quietly, unable to contain her hunger. Su Hai picked up his chopsticks, dipped a fish fillet into the broth for more than 10 seconds until the flesh turned opaque white with curled edges. He placed the fillet into his bowl, coated it in garlic sesame sauce, and took a bite. Zhou Xiaoming sat motionless. Eat, Su Hai said. There's no need to wait for anyone. As if freed from some restraint by those words, Zhou Xiaoming picked up her chopsticks. She carefully took a slice of luncheon meat, swished it in the boiling broth for a few seconds, dipped it in sesame sauce, and put it in her mouth. Her whole body stiffened as if jolted by electricity. Her eyes instantly reddened. It was not the flush before crying, but a physical reaction, her mind gone blank from the overwhelming taste. She kept chewing the luncheon meat, her cheeks puffed out, yet tears were already pooling in her eyes. This is, she swallowed hard, her voice hoarse. It's hot, truly hot, not warmed by engine waste heat, not heated by batteries. Real hot pot, cooked fresh in this pot. Still talking, she grabbed a chopstick full of fish fillets and stuffed them into her mouth, her cheeks bulging like a squirrel. She then took crab claws, followed by sheets of kelp knots. Her chopsticks moved back and forth between the pot and her bowl in a blur. Su Hai watched her eat, the corners of his mouth twitching faintly. He said nothing, picking up a slice of beef to simmer slowly. His gaze lingered casually on Zhou Xiaoming for a few moments. The young woman was small in stature with a delicate frame and a round face paired with large eyes, giving her a youthful, petite appearance. She wore the smallest size white t-shirt, stretched slightly across her frame as she leaned forward toward the hot pot. Shadows gathered gently beneath her collarbones as she lowered her head to eat. Zhao Mimi sat beside Su Hai, swishing a piece of tripe through the broth with her chopsticks. From the corner of her eye, she caught where Su Hai's attention rested and how long it stayed there. She subtly adjusted her posture, shifting back a little and tugging the hem of her short skirt upward slightly. Zhao Mimi already possessed long, well-proportioned legs. The small shift of her skirt revealed more of her thigh line, glowing softly under the warm yellow lighting inside the cockpit. She crossed one leg over the other, her toes swaying lightly, then picked up her chopsticks again and calmly continued cooking her tripe. Zhou Xiaoming was buried in her meal and completely oblivious to the subtle gesture. Su Hai, however, noticed it. He showed no visible reaction, merely lifted his water cup for a sip before returning to his hot pot. Undeterred by his lack of response, Zhao Mimi picked up a piece of cooked beef, dipped it in garlic sesame oil, and placed it directly into Su Hai's bowl. The movement was smooth, as if she had performed it countless times before. Boss, this beef is cooked perfectly. Eat it while it's hot. Zhou Xiaoming looked up, her mouth still stuffed with half a fish fillet. Watching Zhao Mimi serve Su Hai food, her thoughts turned to the subordination agreement. The subordinate obeys the dominant party, who holds command and authority over resource allocation. Zhao Mimi was the senior member, so her actions must follow established norms. Perhaps serving the leader food was an unwritten rule within their small group, an expected duty for every crew member. Zhou Xiaoming thought she ought to do the same to prove herself. She had only recently joined the vessel and could not afford to appear ignorant of proper etiquette. She picked up crab meat, stood up, and leaned across the counter to set it into Su Hai's bowl. Her small frame forced her to stretch forward as she spoke. Captain, this crab meat is delicious. You should try it. Zhao Mimi's chopsticks paused. She still wore a smile, yet the curve of her lips stiffened ever so slightly. She glanced at Zhou Xiaoming, then quickly recovered her gentle expression, though a trace of quiet wariness crept into her eyes. Xiaoming is so thoughtful, Zhao Mimi said softly, her tone honeyed. But the captain dislikes receiving too much food from others during meals. He prefers picking his own ingredients. Isn't that right, boss? She turned toward Su Hai, her gaze carrying a silent plea for him to back her words. 2 portions of food rested in Su Hai's bowl, the beef from Zhao Mimi below, the crab meat from Zhou Xiaoming stacked on top, silent tokens of attention. He glanced down at the bowl, then back at Zhao Mimi's smile and Zhou Xiaoming's earnest, expectant face. Without a word, he lifted both pieces and ate them together. Zhao Mimi's eye twitched. Zhou Xiaoming detected none of the tension. Delighted that Su Hai had accepted her offering, she sat back down and continued scooping tofu from the broth. By the end of the meal, the rich, spicy broth had turned bitter from prolonged boiling. Nearly all the ingredients on the table were finished off. Zhou Xiaoming alone ate roughly as much as Su Hai and Zhao Mimi combined. She leaned back in her chair, clutching her full stomach and letting out a satisfied sigh. I have never eaten this full in my life, she murmured, heavy with the drowsiness that follows a hearty meal. Captain, this ship of yours is paradise. Su Hai prepared to stand and return to the helm, but Zhao Mimi circled around behind him first. Boss, you've worked so hard. You've fought battles these past 2 days, chased off the Wolf Alliance for Xiaoming, and synthesized countless rounds of ammunition by yourself. Your shoulders must be tight. Let me massage them for you. Before Su-hai could reply, her hands settled upon his shoulders. Her fingers were long and nimble, pressing into his trapezius muscles with measured force. Her thumbs slowly kneaded along the edges of his shoulder blades, her palms working gentle circles around the shoulder wells. Zhao Mimi's massage technique was surprisingly skilled. She had studied ergonomics in university and understood that submarine pilots gripping controls for hours bore the greatest strain in their shoulders and necks. She worked slowly, releasing every knotted muscle, pressing precisely on each aching spot. Su-hai had intended to refuse, but the soothing sensation spreading through his shoulders made him swallow the words. He closed his eyes slightly. His shoulder blades creaked softly beneath her touch as the tension built over days finally eased. Zhou Xiaoming watched, her mind racing once more. Zhao Mimi had prepared dinner and was now massaging the captain. Was this another expected duty for crew members? She was new aboard, and Zhao Mimi had already taken on so many tasks. If she did not offer her help, would she come across as lazy? She stood up and asked earnestly, "Captain, are your feet sore? I can fetch a basin of hot water for you to soak them." The moment the words left her mouth, Zhao Mimi's hands froze. Her thumb halted on a pressure point along Su-hai's shoulder blade. She turned to face Zhou Xiaoming, her smile growing noticeably stiffer. "Xiaoming." Zhao Mimi's voice remained soft, yet each syllable felt strained. "The boss does not like others touching his feet. Isn't that correct, boss?" Su-hai sensed the subtle friction hanging in the air. The pressure of Zhao Mimi's fingers on his shoulders grew heavier, as if she were venting her irritation through his muscles. Zhou Xiaoming stood there, innocent and sincere, completely unaware how much her innocent suggestion had unsettled Zhao Mimi. "No need." Su-hai raised a hand and lightly patted Zhao Mimi's wrist to signal her to stop. "Don't keep massaging, your hands will tire." He stood from the chair, rolling his loosened shoulders, then turned to Zhou Xiaoming. "We will take turns resting and steering during the voyage. Go rest first and regain your energy. We may face more trouble ahead that requires you." Zhou Xiaoming nodded obediently. "Understood, Captain. I will head to my quarters right away." She took a few steps toward the corridor, then glanced back, her large eyes blinking at Su-hai. "Captain, once I am well rested, may I come help steer? I am not as skilled as Sister Mimi, but I operated the Lightning alone for a long time. I know all the basic controls." "You may?" Su-hai nodded. Zhou Xiaoming broke into a bright smile, revealing small tiger-like canines, then turned and entered the cabin assigned to her. Only Su-hai and Zhao Mimi remained in the cockpit. Zhao Mimi stood beside the control panel, arms folded, watching Zhou Xiaoming's figure vanish down the corridor before turning back towards Su-hai. Her expression tangled with unnameable emotion. "Boss," she lowered her voice, half joking yet tinged with unmistakable envy. "You are far too kind to the newcomer." Su-hai glanced at her without giving a direct answer. He walked over to the pilot's seat and adjusted the cruising speed on the autopilot. "You should rest too. I will steer for a while." Zhao Mimi fell silent for several seconds, then crossed to sit in the co-pilot's seat. She did not fasten her safety harness or touch the controls. She merely leaned back and stared out the viewport into the dark indigo seawater. After a long pause, she spoke quietly. "I am not tired. I will keep you company on watch." Su-hai's lips twitched faintly, and he said nothing. The Orca-class assault submarine advanced steadily across the abyssal plain at 40 knots. The phased array tactical sonar refreshed scans of surrounding waters every few seconds. Occasional biological blips appeared within 8 kilometers, all safely distant. The quiet journey did not last long. Su-hai leaned back in the pilot's chair to rest his eyes, while Zhao Mimi monitored the instrument panel. Zhao Mimi's voice suddenly cut through the silence. "Boss, we've arrived." Su-hai opened his eyes and sat upright. On the phased array tactical sonar screen, the outline of a colossal underwater ruin slowly materialized 8 kilometers ahead. It was an immense complex of stone architecture spanning over a dozen square kilometers. Its architectural style matched the ancient city ruins Su-hai had discovered at supply points before: towering stone pillars, layered archways, and algae-draped domes. Yet this ruin was far more intact and vast than any other he had seen. The central structure was a massive pyramid-shaped temple, its spire nearly touching an underwater ridge hundreds of meters above. Multiple layers of defensive walls and broad stone plazas surrounded the temple. Rows of giant stone statues lined the plaza, each dozens of meters tall, carved in the shape of merfolk. Their features had eroded away beneath seawater, yet their outlines still radiated ancient, imposing power. A pale blue energy barrier enveloped the entire ruin, covered in swirling runic patterns that separated the structures from the surrounding seawater. The entrance was a monumental stone arch etched with twisted spiral symbols identical to the unsettling markings found in the old city ruins. But Zhao Mimi's gaze did not linger on the ruin itself. She pointed at a cluster of blips near the entrance on the sonar screen, her tone turning grave. "Boss, other submarines are already here." Suhai zoomed in the sonar feed. For submarines formed a fan formation directly before the arch, completely blocking the gateway. All bore the same marking on their hulls, an eagle with outstretched wings clutching a trident in its talons. Though varying in model, all were refitted military-grade vessels armed with at least second-tier weapon systems. "The Eagle Alliance," Zhao Mimi said. She had seen their recruitment notice on the regional channel and remembered their slogan, "Order and Conquest." Zhao Mimi turned and called toward the corridor. "Zhou Xiaoming, come out at once. We have a situation." Moments later, Zhou Xiaoming hurried out of her cabin, rubbing her eyes, her hair slightly messy from sleep. She stepped quickly to the console, opened her treasure map, and cross-referenced the ruin outline on the sonar display. She nodded firmly. "That's definitely the ruin. The coordinates match perfectly, and the structure lines up. It's a third-tier ruin." Right then, a familiar cold notification tone echoed inside Suhai's mind. "Ding! Daily intelligence system. Today's intelligence has refreshed. Time remaining until next refresh, 23 hours, 59 minutes, and 47 seconds. A translucent pentagonal selection panel unfolded before his eyes. 5 colored cursors rotating slowly. Suhai scanned the options: resource intelligence, survival intelligence, hunting intelligence, ruin intelligence, special intelligence. He reached out without hesitation and tapped ruin intelligence. A burst of brilliant golden light erupted from the selected cursor, and the other 4 vanished instantly. The tactical sonar display washed over with pale golden radiance, and a brand new holographic map unfolded in front of him. It was a complete internal structural blueprint of the entire third-tier ruin. The pyramid temple was rendered in cross-section. 3 defensive lines along the outer walls, arrays of statue-triggered traps across the plaza, winding labyrinth corridors inside the temple, groups of hidden chambers on the lower levels, and the core hall at the very bottom. Every passage, hidden door trigger, and trap placement was precisely marked in 3-dimensional wireframe. At the center of the core hall, on the deepest layer, a golden treasure chest icon blinked slowly. Beneath it read, "Final treasure chest, third-tier ruin core reward." Beside the chest icon stood a separate red marker, "Ruin Guardian, 4th-tier creature dormant." Beyond the ruin layout, the hologram marked all living signals within the complex. Green markers denoted neutral wildlife, red markers marked intruders. The number of red blips made Suhai's brows furrow. Many submarines had already entered the ruin. The sonar identification system tagged nearly 10 vessels in total. Groups swept for supplies near the outer walls, while others advanced slowly through the temple labyrinths. Every submarine displayed the Eagle Alliance insignia. The 4 vessels stationed at the entrance maintained their fan blockade of the archway. Suhai committed every detail of the holographic map to memory. He closed the intelligence panel and spoke calmly. "Zhao Mimi, set course directly for the ruin entrance. No detours, no attempts to hide." "Understood." Zhao Mimi pushed the control lever. The Orca-class assault submarine departed the abyssal plain, its bow aligned toward the ruin entrance, advancing steadily at 40 knots. As the distance closed, details of the archway grew clear through the viewport. The massive stone gate stood dozens of meters high. Inside the arch, the pale blue energy barrier rippled like a giant curtain, refracting light and tinting surrounding rocks and seaweed with ethereal blue. A giant merfolk statue stood on either side of the arch, each gripping a stone trident, empty eye sockets watching all incoming vessels. The 4 Eagle Alliance submarines lined up before the arch. Their sonar arrays had clearly detected the approaching Orca-class assault submarine. The largest heavy submarine in the formation pulled forward half its length, its bow searchlight locking straight onto Suhai's vessel. A harsh male voice crackled over the public channel. "Submarine ahead, halt. This is Eagle Alliance 3rd Ruin Exploration Team. This ruin has been secured by the Eagle Alliance. Exploration operations are underway inside. No non-allied vessels are permitted within the ruin perimeter. Turn back immediately, or we will treat your presence as hostile and take necessary action." Suhai opened the public channel and replied plainly. "You have 30 seconds to move aside." There was a pause on the other end, followed by clear impatience. "Do you not understand me? I repeat, this ruin is under Eagle Alliance blockade. We have 4 submarines, and you have only 1. Are you certain you wish to force entry?" Suhai did not repeat himself. He transferred primary control of the weapons array to his console. Hatches covering the aft vertical missile silos snapped open. Safety locks disengaged on the forward dual 8-cell heavy torpedo tubes, and 6 lateral small torpedo tubes switched to rapid-fire mode. Indicator lights lit up along the ammunition racks, showing 360 dark-scale armor-piercing torpedoes and more than 2,000 standard munitions ready for deployment. The cold, stern male voice echoed once more across the public channel. "What are you doing? You're locking." His words were cut short by a shrill alarm. Sonar systems aboard all 4 Eagle Alliance submarines blared simultaneous lock-on warnings. They were not targeted by a single torpedo tube, but locked onto by dozens of ordnance rounds from countless directions and angles at once. On their sonar screens, the fire coverage zone of the Orca-class raider submarine had completely enveloped all 4 vessels. "Damn it, he's actually going to open fire." An exclamation burst over the public channel. "Engage." The stern male voice barked out the order. The 4 Eagle Alliance submarines unleashed their weapons simultaneously. More than a dozen torpedoes surged from their launch tubes, trailing white wakes as they streaked toward the Orca-class raider submarine from varied angles. Their coordinated combat discipline was evident. Torpedoes followed well-planned trajectories. Some charged head-on, others curved in flanking encirclements, and several were set along interception paths meant to cut off Suhai's evasion routes. Suhai did not dodge. Every single torpedo slammed into the hull of the Orca-class raider submarine. Blooms of explosion fire merged outside the viewports, and shockwaves made the cockpit lights flicker faintly. When the flames faded, not even a faint scratch marked the hull. The hull durability of 5,000 points remained untouched. Its permanent endurance turned all the Eagle Alliance firepower into nothing more than waves crashing against stone reefs. Silence hung over the public channel for several full seconds. Then the stern male voice warped with disbelief. "Impossible. This cannot be." A dozen torpedoes struck head-on, and there isn't a single trace of damage. What class of submarine is he piloting? Suhai pressed his thumb down on the firing switch. First volley. 8 dark-scale piercing torpedoes split into 4 groups, 2 assigned to lock onto each enemy submarine. Runes etched on the dark warheads carved 8 faint blue light trails through the seawater. Armor-piercing and tracking traits activated, slashing target evasion probability by 90%. The 4 Eagle Alliance submarines deployed sonar countermeasure flares at once, attempting to disrupt the torpedoes' tracking systems. Yet the guidance systems of the dark-scale piercing torpedoes far outmatched their jamming capabilities. The 8 torpedoes adjusted course the instant interference hit, circling around blind zones created by the decoys and continuing their advance toward their respective targets. Boom, 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 boom. All 8 dark-scale piercing torpedoes struck nearly simultaneously. Piercing warheads tore through the armor of the 4 submarines and detonated inside their hulls. The dual-stage implosion, then detonation mechanism of the dark-scale warheads unleashed all explosive force within the confined hull spaces in an instant. The hulls of the 4 submarines ruptured like balloons blown apart from within. Fire and shrapnel erupted in front of the ruin entrance. Shockwaves slammed against the pale blue energy barrier shielding the ruins, stirring ripples before being silently absorbed by the barrier. 4 Eagle Alliance escort vessels destroyed. Suhai closed the weapons panel and spoke evenly. "Continue forward." Zhao Tianmei reduced speed to low. The Orca-class raider submarine glided through the scattered debris cloud left by the sunken vessels, heading slowly toward the ruin archway. Pulse electric fields on the hull activated automatically, incinerating all floating wreckage into molten slag. Not a single fragment made contact with the submarine's surface. Zhou Xiaoming stood beside the control console, her mouth hanging open in shock. She glanced at the 4 sinking wreckage signatures on the sonar screen, then back at the flawless, unscratched hull of the Orca-class raider submarine. She slowly turned her head toward Zhao Tianmei. Zhao Tianmei winked at her and mouthed silently, "Stay calm." The Orca-class raider submarine slid gently beneath the ruin archway. The pale blue energy barrier parted automatically the moment it touched the hull, like a water curtain pushed aside. It sealed shut again once the submarine passed through. The instant the vessel crossed into the barrier, the seawater outside the viewports shifted color. No longer the dark blue-black of the deep sea. It turned a clear, faintly fluorescent light blue, as if they had entered another world. The space inside the ruins was far larger than it appeared from outside. The seawater within the barrier had been purified by some unknown force, granting exceptional visibility. One could see hundreds of meters into the distance. Giant stone statues lining both sides of the plaza revealed finer details in the clear waters. These merfolk statues bore varied expressions, grief, rage, contemplation. Dense runes were carved across the stone tridents they gripped. The pyramid temple loomed at the far end of the plaza. Pale golden light patterns spread across its surface, identical to the runic markings on the legendary rank cards Su Hai had seen before. Dozens of meters of stone steps led upward to the temple entrance. Neat rows of colonnades flanked the steps, each pillar wrapped in glowing seaweed that bathed the entire structure in cool cyan luminescence. At the very moment the Orca-class raider submarine entered the ruins, deep within the site, near the entrance to the network of underground chambers beneath the pyramid temple, an exceptionally heavy submarine hovered within a narrow passage. Its hull bore a larger Eagle Alliance insignia than the other vessels, with two glowing red crystals embedded where the Eagle's eyes would be. Its armament was staggeringly formidable. A 10-barrel heavy torpedo launcher mounted forward, 6 vertical missile silos along its back, 8 compact side torpedo tubes, plus 2 depth charge dispensers at the stern. Inside this submarine's cockpit, a middle-aged man in his 40s stared rigidly at the sonar display. His expression shifted from astonishment to grimness, then erupted into fury. He wore a dark blue captain's uniform embroidered with the Golden Eagle Alliance insignia on his epaulettes. In his left hand, he clutched an unfinished mug of black coffee. His grip shook slightly. His name was Gao Zhenhai, commander of Eagle Alliance's 3rd Exploration Unit and captain of the 3rd Order submarine Eagle's Claw. 30 seconds prior, he had received the final transmission from the guard detachment stationed at the ruin entrance, a broken distress signal filled with background explosions and metal tearing, cutting off abruptly amid harsh white noise. The transmission contained only a few fragmented lines. An unidentified submarine has forced its way into the ruins. We have engaged. Its hull cannot be breached. Its torpedoes are abnormal. Damn it, then silence. The signatures of all 4 escort vessels vanished completely from sonar. A single submarine? Gao Zhenhai slammed the coffee mug onto the console. Dark coffee splattered across the surface. 4 second-order escort craft wiped out by 1 submarine? Are you joking with me? His gaze swept over the other operators in the cockpit, and none dared meet his eyes. Gao Zhenhai's deputy, a young man with thin-rimmed glasses, quickly pulled up the last sonar data sent by the guard unit and projected the intruder's silhouette onto the main display. Commander, this is the target data recorded before contact was lost. The submarine model cannot be precisely identified, but sonar echo analysis confirms it is at minimum a 3rd-order vessel, with an estimated speed above 70 knots. Hull defensive capabilities remain unknown, yet direct hits from more than a dozen standard torpedoes produced 0 visible damage. In terms of armament, the guards recorded an unstandard torpedo variant, black warheads etched with dim golden runes, possessing speed and tracking capabilities far exceeding conventional ordnance. 3rd Order. Gao Zhenhai's expression darkened further. He drew a deep breath, forcing his anger under control to analyze the situation rationally. The Eagle Alliance had deployed nearly 10 submarines into the ruins on this operation, yet most were 1st and 2nd order support craft. The true main combat strength rested with his 3rd Order Eagle's Claw and several other 2nd order assault vessels. If the intruder truly commanded a 3rd order submarine armed with specialized piercing torpedoes, a direct confrontation carried immense risk. Still, he could not allow an unknown vessel to rampage freely through the ruins. The Alliance had paid a heavy price to purchase these ruin coordinates from information brokers. The site was rumored to hold 3rd Order evolution materials and legendary rank inscriptions, treasures they could not afford to surrender. All hands, Gao Zhenhai ordered in a low voice, set up an ambush. The deputy immediately relayed the command over an encrypted channel. On the sonar screen, several green signatures exploring the maze-like corridors began moving, repositioning along routes designated by Gao Zhenhai. Meanwhile, the Orca-class raider submarine had passed through the outer plaza and entered the main gate of the Pyramid Temple. The passageways within the temple formed an even more intricate labyrinth than the exterior suggested. Countless side corridors branched off the main tunnel. Some ascended toward higher levels of the pyramid, others descended into the underground chamber network, and many were blocked by collapsed boulders, forming dead ends. The walls bore unsettling spiral symbols identical to those Su Hai had discovered in ancient city ruins. Certain markings glowed faintly as the submarine passed, as if responding to an ancient call. Zhao Tianmei frowned at the tangled network of passageways shown on sonar, her fingers hovering hesitantly over the control lever. Boss, there are too many routes. Which one leads to the core? Su Hai had long memorized the holographic map provided in the ruin intelligence. He pointed to an unassuming side passage on the sonar display. Take this route. Circle around the main corridor ahead and pass through the hidden doorway on the right. This path lets us bypass all forward traps and most patrolling forces. Zhao Tianmei adjusted course without delay. The Orca-class raider submarine veered away from the broad main passage and turned into a narrow side corridor. The tunnel was just wide enough to accommodate the submarine's hull. Glowing tube worms and deep-sea vines clung to the rock walls, clear evidence that few creatures had traversed this route in ages. After several minutes of travel, a faint smile tugged at Su Hai's lips. The holographic map from the Ruin Intelligence clearly showed that not far ahead in a parallel passage, Eagle Alliance submarines were rapidly assembling under Gao Jinhai's orders, preparing to lay an ambush at the fork in the main corridor. They had no idea Su Hai would never take that main route. Less than 300 meters beside this ambush zone, the Ruin Intelligence marked another critical detail, a nest of abyssal bone sharks. The shark swarm was sizable, containing multiple second-order elite specimens and a third-order bone shark, king, dwelling deep within the nest. The sharks remained dormant for now, but sufficient disturbance would send them surging forth like an agitated swarm of hornets. Su Hai navigated the submarine to the end of the side corridor and hovered within a concealed rock recess. The shark nest lay only dozens of meters away, separated by a thin layer of rock. He opened the weapons panel and selected 2 standard torpedoes, not dark-scale piercing torpedoes, just ordinary, moderately powerful standard ordnance. His target was not the sharks themselves, but the rock formation directly above their nest. The 2 torpedoes launched from the compact side tubes, trailing white wakes as they struck the rock overhead with pinpoint accuracy. The blast shockwave did not directly harm the sharks, yet it collapsed a massive section of the rock face. Enormous rubble and deafening explosive noise crashed into the dormant swarm. The sharks awakened. Several first-order bone sharks burst out of the nest first, followed by 2 second-order elites, and finally the third-order bone shark king, nearly 12 meters in length. Its eyes burned dark red. All bony spines along its back flared outward in rage, and its tail hammered violently against the rock walls. The entire shark swarm fell into a furious frenzy. They streamed out of the nest, surging through the narrow main corridor in search of any viable target. The first prey they encountered was the Eagle Alliance detachment setting up the ambush at the main corridor fork. A heartbeat later, violent explosions and the clang of metal echoed from the direction of the main passage. On the holographic map, Su Hai watched the Eagle Alliance detachment submarines come under relentless shark assault. Volleys of spines unleashed by the third-order bone shark king pierced the side armor of one second-order vessel. 2 second-order bone sharks attacked the propellers of another, while the swarm of first-order sharks swarmed and tore at the entire unit like a silver storm. Chaos erupted across the Eagle Alliance detachment's communications channel. Conflicting distress calls, weapons fire, and screams mingled together, echoing across the whole ruin via unencrypted transmissions. Su Hai disabled the audio monitor and spoke 2 words to Zhao Tianmei. Speed up. The Orca-class raider submarine glided out from the rock recess and accelerated along the safe route marked on the Ruin Intelligence, heading toward the Ruin core hall. The sounds of chaos from the main corridor faded further behind them, the sharks' roars and torpedo blasts gradually blocked by thick rock strata. Su Hai leaned back in the command chair and glanced at the receding outlines of passageways on the sonar screen. The path ahead grew steadily wider. The narrow side corridor merged into a massive main tunnel, and a colossal stone gate dozens of meters high came into view in the distance. Carved onto its surface was a coiled deep-sea serpent, its body wrapping around the entire door frame, its head gazing down upon anyone who approached. This gate served as the entrance to the core hall. Su Hai studied the serpent relief. Its carved eyes reflected faint green light beneath the submarine's searchlights, resembling living pupils peering at intruders from the darkness. The Orca-class raider submarine slid slowly into the core hall. The scale of this hall exceeded Su Hai's expectations. The vaulted ceiling rose nearly 100 meters overhead. Most glowing crystals embedded within it had dimmed, yet residual light still bathed the hall in twilight. Giant stone pillars stretched from the ground all the way to the ceiling. Fossilized skeletons of ancient deep-sea serpents coiled around each pillar, individual bony spines measuring several meters long. The hall floor was paved with smooth black stone slabs etched with dense spiral runes. Submerged in seawater, the markings shimmered pale green, flickering in rhythm with water currents. At the very center of the hall rose a towering altar platform dozens of meters tall. Each step was broad enough to hold a medium-sized submarine. Suspended above the altar's summit floated a giant blue energy sphere more than 10 meters in diameter. Within the sphere, the outline of a treasure chest could be faintly seen, the final chest marked in the rune intelligence. Layers of energy veils wrapped the chest. Ancient runic arrays flowed across the veil's surface, emitting a low resonant hum with every shift of light that made the seawater throughout the hall tremble subtly. Without needing orders, Zhao Tianmei reduced speed to low, carefully guiding the Orca-class raider submarine toward the altar. Zhou Xiaoming stood at her console, gazing upward at the approaching massive platform. Her large eyes mirrored the shifting blue glow of the energy sphere, her mouth slightly parted as she breathed softly. The altar proved even larger than it appeared from afar. Each step stood several meters high, carved with reliefs eroded by seawater over countless ages. Schools of fish, shark packs, abyss leviathans, and scenes of merfolk building cities beneath the waves. The reliefs possessed a primitive, eerie aesthetic. The figures' stiff, twisted postures suggested some ancient sacrificial ritual. High above the altar, the 10-meter blue energy sphere hovered mid-air, rotating slowly. Dense runic patterns flowed across its surface, each line pulsing as if drawing breath. At the sphere's exact center rested a fully golden treasure chest, a glowing, unknown gem set into its lid. When the Orca-class raider submarine drew within 100 meters of the altar summit, the seabed directly in front of the altar split open. It was not the random collapse of an earthquake, but a neat, rectangular fissure, as if a hidden door beneath the floor was sliding open. A ring of pale green runic light ignited along the fissure's edge, spreading rapidly along the spiral markings covering the hull floor and turning the entire ground into a glowing web. A gigantic figure rose slowly from the crack. Su Hai had maintained a calm expression facing the third-order bone shark king and second-order contaminated entities, yet now his pupils narrowed slightly. The creature climbing from the fissure was a colossus standing nearly 20 meters tall. Its lower body consisted of 8 giant octopus-like tentacles, each several meters thick and covered in black chitinous scales. The tip of every tentacle bore an open sucker maw lined with circular serrated fangs. Its upper body formed a burly humanoid torso with dark gray skin and bulging musculature, heavy bone armor plating its chest and shoulders. The most unsettling feature was its head, a massive shark skull perched atop its neck. The shark head was dark gray, its jaw far broader than a human's, lined with at least 5 or 6 rows of densely packed sharp fangs. Its eyes were not the dark crimson of a shark's, but an older, pure eerie green, with vertical pupils akin to those of lizards or serpents. Embedded upon its forehead was a fist-sized blue crystal. Within the crystal, swirls of ghostly green light flowed in perfect, synchronized rhythm with the runic pulses emanating from the energy orb on the altar. Once the shark-headed, humanoid guardian rose fully from the fissure, 8 tentacles unfurled slowly, spreading across the floor to form a circular formation dozens of meters in diameter. It did not attack at once. Instead, it stared down at the submarine, which looked little more than a toy from its vantage point, through those vertical, ghost green eyes. Zhao Tianmei's hands tightened around the control yoke, and Zhou Xiaoming's fingers hovered above the auxiliary weapons panel, her breathing growing quick and shallow. But Su Hai raised a hand, signaling them to hold their actions. At that moment, relic intelligence popped up, displaying detailed information on the Guardian, far more comprehensive than he had anticipated. Identity, Relic Guardian. Rank, Tier 4 mutated creature. Status, semi-awakened executing Guardian duties. Traits. 8 tentacles can engage multiple targets simultaneously. The suction cups at each tentacle tip carry a psychic drain effect. The crystal upon its forehead serves as its energy core and its sole weak point. Once the crystal is shattered, the Guardian will lose all energy supply and disintegrate within a brief window. Attack methods: tentacle strangulation, psychic scream, energy pulse wave, crystal ray. Clearing methods: choose one method 1. Accept the Guardian's 3 trials. The trials consist of the trial of wisdom, the trial of valor, and the trial of sacrifice. Those who pass all trials will be deemed relic inheritors. The Guardian will voluntarily lift the energy orb's protection and surrender the final treasure chest. This method requires no ammunition and no combat. Method 2. Directly engage and eliminate the Guardian. Upon its death, the energy orb's defenses will automatically dissipate, and the treasure chest will be yours. Special note: the Relic Guardian is the final sentinel of this relic. Its duty is to select inheritors, not to slay intruders. If you possess sufficient wisdom and courage, you may claim what you seek without bloodshed. Yet bear this in mind, the architects of this relic were not human. Their standards for the trials differ greatly from those of mankind. The odds of passing the trials are far lower than the odds of slaying the Guardian. Suhai read through both clearing methods twice. Trial of wisdom, trial of valor, trial of sacrifice. It sounded like a ritual sequence used by some ancient civilization to select successors. If he could obtain the treasure chest without firing a single shot, that would certainly be preferable to engaging a Tier 4 creature head-on. However, his gaze lingered on the line within the note. The architects of this relic were not human. Their standards for the trials differ greatly from those of mankind. The odds of passing the trials are far lower than the odds of slaying the Guardian. He had already reached a decision in his mind, yet his expression remained impassive. The relic Guardian spoke. Its sharp jaws did not move. Its voice echoed directly within the minds of every living being in the hall through some form of psychic resonance. The tone was deep and slow, carrying the oppressive weight of the abyssal depths. Every syllable sounded as though squeezed out from 10,000 meters below the waves. I am the Relic Guardian, the sentinel of this relic. You have breached the outer walls and passed the maze's screening to stand before me. This proves you hold the qualifications to enter the core zone. Its 8 tentacles lifted slightly, forming a complex symbol in midair. Qualification does not equal success. You must undergo 3 trials to prove you are worthy of this relic's inheritance. All who complete every trial shall gain everything contained within the treasure chest. Those who fail, your souls shall remain trapped within the relic forever, becoming part of this temple. These are the rules. The rules cannot be altered. Suhai replied over the public channel, his tone calm and respectful. State the contents of the trials. The vertical ghost green pupils of the Relic Guardian brightened faintly, seemingly satisfied by Suhai's compliant demeanor. Its psychic resonance reverberated through the hall. The first trial, the trial of wisdom. I shall pose 2 questions to you. You must provide your answers within 10 breaths of each question being spoken. Failure to answer either correctly means the trial is lost. Are you prepared? I am prepared, Suhai answered. At the same time, he quickly sent a silent command from his console to Zhao Tianmei over the squad internal channel. Stand by. Prepare for combat. Load all standard ordnance. Preload 4 dark-scale piercing torpedoes. Await my order. Zhao Tianmei sent no reply, yet her fingers slid soundlessly toward the weapon's system preheat switch. Zhou Xiaoming saw the message as well. She bit her lower lip, quietly activating the locking systems on the auxiliary weapons panel, and muffled her breathing so it could barely be heard over the channel. The Relic Guardian's first question echoed throughout the hall. What grows lighter the deeper it goes? Suhai barely paused to think before responding immediately. Color. In the deep sea, the deeper you descend, the lighter hues appear under illumination. It was no profound riddle. Anyone who had spent even a few days in the deep ocean could offer that answer. The Guardian's vertical pupils blinked once, seemingly satisfied with the reply, yet its 8 tentacles did not relax, maintaining a combat-ready stance. The second question. The Guardian's psychic resonance sank deeper than before, each syllable reverberating like echoes rising from the bottom of an ancient abyss. If you must choose between saving your most vital companion and saving the lives of 100 strangers, which will you pick? Answer within 10 breaths. Your choice shall determine whether you qualify for the second trial. As Suhai listened to the question, his demeanor stayed respectful, yet inwardly he sneered. The trial of wisdom. 2 questions, progressing from shallow to profound, from objective fact to subjective choice, confronting personal fears and moral dilemmas. It was a standard screening process, designed to test whether an intruder's mindset and values aligned with certain standards of this ancient civilization. A genuine seeker would now be earnestly weighing this moral paradox, striving to craft a flawless answer. But Suhai was no seeker. While answering the first question, he had already transmitted another command to Zhao Tianmei from his console. While its attention is fixed on questioning, fully unlock all weapon systems. Preload 8 dark-scale piercing torpedoes. Transport another 40 dark-scale piercing torpedoes from storage. I intend to conduct a large-scale fusion. Zhao Tianmei hesitated briefly, then sent a short affirmative reply over the squad channel. She quietly rose from the co-pilot's seat, hunched low, and hurried toward the storage hold. Zhou Xiaoming seamlessly took over monitoring duties from the co-pilot station. While waiting for Zhao Tianmei to transport the ammunition, Suhai deliberately assumed an air of intense deliberation. He lowered his head slightly, his brows furrowed, lips pressed into a thin line. He even tapped his fingers gently against the console a few times, as if repeatedly weighing the answer to this moral dilemma. The relic guardian waited silently. Its 8 tentacles remained poised for attack, yet a trace of scrutiny surfaced within its ghost green vertical pupils. It observed the human closely, studying every subtle reaction as he confronted the moral choice. The trial of wisdom never judged the answer itself. It judged the values revealed by the respondent throughout the process of contemplation. Suhai waited until the final moment of the 8th breath before slowly lifting his head. My answer is, he paused halfway through his sentence on purpose, then delivered the words in a firm, sorrowful tone. I will save my crewmate. Whether the alternative is 100 or 1,000 strangers, I will only save my companion. Upon hearing this reply, the relic guardian fell into a short silence. Its ghost green vertical pupils fixed upon Suhai's submarine, as if attempting to peer through the hull and see the soul of the human inside the cockpit. After several seconds, it nodded slowly. Your answer took me by surprise. A complex emotion Suhai could not decipher lingered within its psychic resonance. Perhaps astonishment, perhaps some unnameable form of acknowledgement. First trial passed. Zhao Tianmei returned just at that moment, fine beads of sweat dotting her forehead. She quickly typed a text message in the squad channel. Ammunition in position. All 40 dark-scale piercing torpedoes have been moved beside the workbench. Suhai did not turn to look at her, only sending 2 words over the channel. Wait. The relic guardian's tentacles began rearranging their formation, shifting from an attack posture into a far more intricate ceremonial configuration. Its psychic resonance boomed once more, sounding even more solemn than prior. Second trial, the trial of valor. Beneath the altar lies a passage leading underground, terminating at an arena. You must single-handedly defeat an abyssal creature of your own tier within the arena. Your companions cannot intervene, and your submarine, hold on. Suhai cut it off. The relic guardian's ghost green vertical pupils contracted sharply. It was likely the first time in the relic's history that anyone had interrupted it mid-announcement of trial rules. Its 8 tentacles tightened involuntarily, and the frequency of flickering green runes on the hull floor accelerated noticeably. The trial of valor requires me to engage in one-on-one combat with an abyssal creature of equal tier, correct? Suhai's voice remained calm, yet a subtle note of skepticism crept into his tone. I merely wish to confirm. If I prevail, what will the trial of sacrifice demand? Judging by its name, will I be forced to surrender parts of my own body? Or offer one of my crewmates as a sacrifice to the relic? An elusive glint flashed within the guardian's vertical pupils. It remained silent for far longer than before, then spoke slowly, a faint, barely detectable wariness in its tone. The specific requirements of the trial of sacrifice shall only be revealed upon passing the trial of valor. Such are the rules. The rules. Suhai's voice suddenly turned sharp. All trace of deference fell away in an instant, revealing unyielding grit beneath. I reject your rules. I do not trust your trials, nor do I trust this relic. This hull reeks of gloom. Your posture upon emerging was uncanny, and your shark-like head bears far too much resemblance to the mutated sharks we encountered outside. Who can say you are not leading us step by step into a trap? The relic guardian's 8 tentacles tensed simultaneously. Its massive shark-headed form lowered slowly, ghost green vertical eyes staring straight down at Suhai's submarine. Its psychic resonance grew deep and menacing. Do you dare question my impartiality? Do you doubt the sacred rules of this relic? I do, Suhai said. The single word echoed through the core hull for several seconds before fading away. The guardian's tentacles trembled faintly, not from fear, but from repressed, towering rage. Its psychic resonance surged to a higher pitch, shaking the luminous crystals lining the hull's vault until dust drifted down. Do you understand what you are saying? This relic has stood for tens of thousands of years, and I have guarded this place for millennia. Countless beings have come here to undergo the trials. Some passed, some failed, yet none have ever questioned the sanctity of the rules. You, a newly arrived human, on what grounds? I am not questioning. Suhai cut in, his voice cold as a blade drawn from beneath glacial ice. I am refusing. I will not proceed through your 3 trials. I want the treasure chest, and I want none of your trials. I shall give you one final chance. Will you step aside voluntarily, or shall I force you to move? For the first time, the relic guardian's shark jaws gaped fully open. Rows upon rows of sharp teeth glinted with chilling radiance beneath the ghost green light, each fang as thick as Suhai's arm. Its psychic resonance morphed into a shrill, ear-splitting wave that reverberated endlessly through the hall. You are courting death. Suhai offered no verbal response. No reply was needed. The moment the guardian uttered those 2 words, he issued the command across the squad channel. Zhao Tianmei, Open fire. Saturation strike with standard ordnance. Deny at any time to react. Every weapon system aboard the Orca-class assault submarine activated at once. Dual 8-tube heavy torpedo launchers unleashed all 16 heavy torpedoes in a single volley. 4 Sea Spear 3 anti-ship missiles ejected from the dorsal vertical launch silos, and 6 smaller side torpedo tubes poured fire at maximum rapid-fire rate. The firepower of this first volley wove a dense network of explosions across the hull, bearing down upon the Relic Guardian's colossal frame. The Guardian's reaction speed surpassed any foe Su-Hai had ever faced. All 8 tentacles spread wide in the same instant, forming a defensive barrier woven from tentacle flesh and black mist before its body. Dozens of torpedoes detonated upon striking the barrier. Flames and shock waves were largely blocked, with only a handful breaking through gaps to burst against the Guardian's body. Yet standard munitions barely left shallow scorch marks on the Tier 4 creature's bony carapace, failing even to crack the armor. Is that all? Unmaskable contempt saturated the Guardian's psychic resonance. Its tentacles shifted out of their defensive posture once more. Suctioned oral cavities at the tip of every tentacle parted, revealing layered circular serrated teeth within. The ghost green vertical eyes looked down upon Su-Hai's submarine, and the corners of its shark jaws curved into an icy sneer. Arrogant human, this volume of fire cannot even pierce my outer defenses. Now, you shall pay the price for your hubris. Zhao Tianmei, Su-Hai said over the squad channel, his tone steady, as if he were not locked in mortal combat with a Tier 4 entity. Maintain the barrage. Do not cease fire. Understood. Zhao Tianmei's voice carried a hint of tension, yet held unwavering resolve. She pushed launch frequency to its absolute limit. Standard ammunition streamed endlessly from every tube, and continuous walls of flame formed across the hull from successive detonations. The Relic Guardian parried these attacks effortlessly with its tentacles and mist barrier, and its cold laughter echoed via psychic resonance. Futile. At that exact moment, Su-Hai rose from the pilot's seat and turned to walk into the storage hold. Upon the workbench inside the storage hold sat the 40 dark-scale piercing torpedoes Zhao Tianmei had transported earlier, neatly stacked in rows. Su-Hai drew a deep breath, opened the fusion interface, and selected all 40 dark-scale piercing torpedoes. Warning. This fusion involves 40 identical epic-grade munitions. Psychic energy consumption will be extreme. Proceed? Proceed. Violet light erupted within the storage hold. It was not the soft, confined glow that enveloped a small cluster of torpedoes during prior fusions, but a blazing purple pillar illuminating the entire compartment as bright as daylight. The 40 dark-scale piercing torpedoes disintegrated simultaneously within the radiance. Countless dark-scale fragments swirled, collided, compressed, and reformed amid the violet light. Su-Hai felt as though an invisible giant hand clamped tight around his brain, draining his psychic energy relentlessly. His temples throbbed as if ready to split open, twisted shadows crept along the edges of his vision, and a faint metallic tang of blood rose in his nostrils. But he did not stop. He gritted his teeth, gripping the edge of the workbench so tightly that his knuckles emitted faint creaking sounds. The violet radiance persisted for nearly half a minute. Then it vanished abruptly. The 40 dark-scale piercing torpedoes were gone from the workbench. In their place rested one single torpedo. A jet-black torpedo. Its hull was a full size larger than a dark-scale piercing torpedo. No scaled textures remained on its surface. Instead, it was smooth as polished mirror, black enough to absorb nearly all light striking it. A ring of dark golden runic patterns encircled the warhead. The runes were far denser than those on the dark-scale piercing torpedoes, each line flickering on and off rapidly like a living breath. Deep within the hull, a tightly compressed crimson energy core could be faintly discerned, as if a miniature star had been sealed inside. Fusion complete. Dark-scale piercing torpedo times 40 Abyss Annihilation torpedo times 1. Abyss Annihilation torpedo. Power increased to 800 of a dark-scale piercing torpedo. Possesses the Annihilation trait. Upon impact, it triggers a high-energy reaction that disintegrates target matter at the molecular level. Possesses the Pierce trait. Ignores all shields and energy barriers belonging to Tier 4 and lower entities. Possesses the Tracking trait. After locking onto a target, it can execute 5 trajectory adjustments. Evasion probability reduced by 99. Special warning. This munition holds catastrophic destructive power. Its blast radius may encompass the launch platform itself. Deployment from a safe distance is recommended. Su-Hai lifted the Abyss Annihilation torpedo into his arms. It weighed heavier than any torpedo he had ever fused, far too heavy to be merely ordnance, more akin to a black hole compressed into torpedo form. The hull did not radiate warmth. Instead, it emanated a bone-chilling cold that sent a shiver down the nape of one's neck, like clutching cold iron excavated from the deepest reaches of the abyss. He carried the torpedo out of storage and returned to the cockpit. Zhao Tianmei continued firing relentlessly, waves of standard ordnance and dark-scale piercing torpedoes hammering the Relic Guardian without pause. The hull had been thrown into chaos by explosions and shockwaves. Several luminous crystals crashed down from the vault, and giant serpent skeletons embedded in stone pillars rattled beneath the blasts. The Relic Guardian continued to laugh. Several cracks had appeared across its bony carapace, and multiple tentacles bore gashes torn open by dark-scale piercing torpedoes. Yet its overall combat capability had not sustained fatal damage. A Tier 4 creature possessed far greater vitality than any foe Su Hai had fought before. While dark-scale piercing torpedoes could pierce its defensive barrier, the damage dealt by a single warhead was negligible. Human. Its mental resonance echoed throughout the hall, laced with the condescending tone of a judge pronouncing sentence. Your ammunition is finite, and so is my patience. Su Hai offered no reply. He loaded the Abyss Devourer torpedo into one heavy tube. Then he turned to Zhao Tianmei. Await my command. Cease conventional ammunition suppression. Switch to dark-scale piercing torpedoes. Fire 4 in a simultaneous salvo. Target the crystal on its forehead. Zhao Tianmei's eyes widened as she read the attribute data. What is this thing? How can its power rating be so high? The blast radius extends far enough to cover our own position. Do not concern yourself with its identity, Su Hai ordered. Carry out my instructions. Immediately after firing, accelerate to full speed and retreat. Zhao Tianmei bit her lower lip and asked no further questions. She activated the firing sequence for the 4 dark-scale piercing torpedoes, hovering her finger above the launch button as she waited for Su Hai's countdown. 3, 2, 1, fire. Trailing faint blue streaks of light, the 4 dark-scale piercing torpedoes surged toward the Relic Guardian's forehead crystal from separate angles. The Relic Guardian's defensive barrier was ripped open in 4 places by the piercing properties of the dark-scale warheads. Having breached the barrier, the torpedoes hurtled straight for the fist-sized blue crystal. The Relic Guardian sensed mortal danger instinctively. It retracted all 8 tentacles, weaving them together to form a living shield of flesh before its forehead. The 4 dark-scale piercing torpedoes detonated against the surface of the tentacles, mangling 2 of them terribly, yet the shockwave failed to strike the crystal directly, blocked by the makeshift barrier. The blue crystal remained intact. Its light flickered several times, and the swirling dark green runic patterns within it rippled faintly for a brief moment. Is that all you can muster? Mockery tinged the Relic Guardian's mental resonance as it escaped annihilation. It slowly lowered its damaged tentacles, its vertical dark green pupils locking back onto Su Hai's submarine. That was nearly a hit, yet not nearly enough. Now it is my turn. Its voice cut off abruptly. Amid the fading glow from the 4 torpedo explosions, an entirely black torpedo slipped silently through the smoke, streaking toward the forehead crystal at a speed bordering on instantaneous movement. This was the projectile Su Hai had concealed. Before launch, Su Hai had programmed the Abyss Devourer torpedo with a 4-second firing delay. When the 4 dark-scale warheads launched simultaneously, the Relic Guardian's full attention was drawn to them, channeling the barrier's entire energy reserve to its appendages. The moment the blast from the 4 torpedoes engulfed the tentacle shield, the Abyss Devourer torpedo departed its tube. It was now less than 20 meters away from the Relic Guardian's forehead crystal, speeding forward. 5 course adjustments carved eerie, jagged trajectories. The Guardian's remaining tentacles attempted interception, but they had been grievously wounded by the earlier explosion, drastically slowing their response time. Against the penetration attribute of the Abyss Devourer torpedo, the defensive barrier proved meaningless. The black warhead passed through the barrier as easily as slipping through a thin curtain of water. The Abyss Devourer torpedo slammed squarely into the blue crystal. Then came the detonation. There was no ordinary orange fireball, nor did it feature the dark red inward-outward blast of dark-scale piercing torpedoes. The instant the Abyss Devourer torpedo triggered, it unleashed a sphere of pure black energy collapsing inward upon itself. The fist-sized black energy sphere formed against the crystal's surface. Centered on the crystal, it began voraciously swallowing everything surrounding it: seawater, light, runic energy, and the Relic Guardian's flesh. Oblivion. A mental shriek erupted from the relic guardian throughout the hall. It was a raw, soul-deep roar of agony. Countless fine fractures spiderwebbed across the blue crystal under the consumption of the abyss energy sphere. Dark green light gushed out through every crack, only to be fully absorbed by the sphere. One after another, the runic patterns snapped, shattered, and dissolved. The ancient markings that had swirled within the crystal for thousands of years vanished completely into nothingness. The crystal shattered,